Chapter 830. A joyful expression flashed across Ing Juren's face. But he quickly suppressed this emotion and hesitated for a while. For Black Blade hero Ing, this kind of hesitation was very uncommon. After about a dozen breaths, Ing Juren stood up straight and said, "I want to hear it." Li Yunxin smiled. "Okay. Then let me ask you first. Do you know that the officer next to you is a member of the Freemasonry?" Ing Juren was stunned. "What? Then you don't know." Li Yunxin raised his hand and pointed. "Lu Gongzan stayed here for a long time and clearly understood the people around you. There are Freemasonry people around you and there are also his people. This officer is a spy of the Freemasonry. But after observing him for a while, he felt that this person's nature is not bad. After all, the matter of which force to serve is not something that can be decided by some small fry. He can't refuse whoever comes to him and he can't figure out what those people want him to do. It's understandable that he has no choice but to agree. You don't have to be surprised. It's a convention that there are spies around the emperor." Ing Juren raised his eyebrows, and a murderous look appeared on his face. "You want me to, don't misunderstand. I won't kill him." Li Yunxin waved his hand. "I want to use him. Don't alarm him. Also, you have a few painters here, right?" Ing Juren's face was gloomy. "They are Lu Gongzan's disciples. But they only became his disciples for a few months. He chose a few talented and intelligent ones and said that I might be able to use them if I keep them by my side." "Oh. Then I can tell you responsibly that these are not spies. There's no need for that. But think about it. Is there anyone that Lu Gongzan likes the most and is the most intelligent? Find me." Ing Juren thought for a moment. "There is one called Wang Wang. Lu Gongzan once said that he. Where is he now? I'm not sure about that. But it should be in the northern part of the city. When it was time to choose a site to build the palace, I went there once. What does it look like?" "Early 20s. Beijing is a..." Li Yunxin raised his hand to interrupt him and closed his eyes. After 3 breaths of time, a small whirlwind appeared in the room. A figure quickly emerged from the whirlwind, standing on the ground. "Is it him?" "It's him." Ing Juren slightly widened his eyes. She was astonished by Li Yunxin's remarkable ability, and even a little envious. The person on the ground was indeed a young man in his early 20s, and he was indeed fair and clean. He looked weak and delicate, and seemed to be a good match for his identity as an artist. However, his eyes were still closed, as if he didn't know that he had been captured by Li Yunxin and was still sleeping soundly. He was almost at the transcendent state. For someone of his age and family background, it was an unbelievably high level. It seemed that Lu Gongzan had made the right choice. He was also a cultivation genius, or else he wouldn't have caught his eye. As for this person's character, Li Yunxin trusted old Lu's judgment. He stared at Wang Wang for a while and began to speak. It seemed like he was talking to himself, but also to Ing Juren or this young man. "When I first met Lu Gongzan, we were kidnapped by a group of people and brought to the wild forest near the city of Wei. I don't remember if it was the 6 ghosts in the river or the 7 ghosts who kidnapped us. I don't remember, but later I found out that they were chased by you and had nowhere else to run. So we had a little bit of fate from the beginning. It could be considered as God's will and destiny. When old Lu and I were trapped, I painted a painting called Walking in the Night in Silk Clothes. But my spiritual power was sealed at that time, so old Lu had to do the finishing touch. That was how the painting array was completed." At this point he paused. Ing Juren thought he was going to continue. But Li Yunxin didn't continue. He changed the topic. "Do you know what my father looked like?" Ing Juren was stunned. Li Yunxin got up and walked to the desk. There was a piece of paper on the desk for the emperor to write on. Li Yunxin picked up the brush and started sketching on the Shen paper. "He looked like me," he said as he drew, "but a little older. See, this is what he looked like." He finished and picked up the paper. It was supposed to be one piece, but with a shake of his hand, dozens of pieces scattered on the desk. Ing Juren looked at Wang Wang, who was still ignorant, and then looked at the drawings. "This is," Li Yunxin said seriously, "what I want you to do is this." While the two were talking, the official was still waiting outside the door. If it was a minister discussing business with Emperor Rong, he would leave the room and stand on the platform in front of the door. But now that the mysterious Dragon King was in the room and didn't seem to like him, he retreated a little further and stood below the stairs. But he could still hear the voices in the room. After all, this used to be the official office of Qingdu. The house was built early and not often repaired. Even if it was renovated a few days ago, it couldn't isolate all the sounds. But he couldn't hear clearly. He could occasionally hear some words, but he couldn't make out what they meant. The old official listened for a quarter of an hour and finally gave up. He felt that the god inside must have used some method to prevent outsiders from entering. As for whether it was to prevent him, he didn't think so. It was because that god was touched by something and had come to find His Majesty to tell him some heartfelt things. When he got emotional and saw that there was an outsider around, he naturally felt uncomfortable. That was why he scolded him. He breathed a sigh of relief and looked up at the sky. Then he waved to an imperial guard in the distance and told him to wait here. He took a step forward and walked out of the courtyard. He went to the back kitchen and ordered to prepare some snacks. After thinking for a while, he ordered to prepare some meat. He knew that His Majesty was born poor and that even now, his taste was a little heavy. In the past, when he served other nobles, his food was light. But even when His Majesty ate supper, he insisted on meat and vegetables. He checked the back kitchen for a while and then slowly walked to the courtyard. From the back kitchen to the courtyard where Emperor Rong's study was located, he had to pass through a small path. The back kitchen was originally a house next to the county government. This path was an alley with high bluestone brick walls on both sides. When he walked into the alley, he saw a person standing in front of him. Because it was night, he couldn't see the person's face clearly. He hesitated for a moment and walked forward. He realized that the person should be a cultivator. It was easy to distinguish cultivators from mortals, if you saw them often. They often didn't care about the weather or the weather. For example, at this time, there was still some snow on the streets of Chengdu, but the person was wearing a thin shirt. He held his head high and chest out, not afraid of the cold. But his face was covered with a cloth to hide his face. The middle-aged official stopped 3 steps in front of him. The person said, "Li Yunxin met Your Majesty?" The middle-aged official didn't say anything. The person smiled. "What? Back then, when you were lying in bed and about to die, we saved you. You said that you would repay us even if you were an ox or a horse. Do you regret it now?" The middle-aged official sighed. He did. What did he say? "It's not important. So, it's up to me whether it's important or not." The person snorted. "Say it word by word." The middle-aged official sighed again. He said, alas, he didn't want to have anything to do with His Majesty and wanted to be heartless. But later he met his biological father and cleared up the misunderstanding. Maybe because of this, he came to talk to His Majesty about the past. I vaguely heard him say something about fate and fate. I think he was just reminiscing about the past. You should know how His Majesty got to where he is today. The person thought for a moment. Nothing else? That's all? Nothing else. The middle-aged official replied. He probably missed his old friend. Humph. The person snorted and was about to leave. The old middle-aged official hurriedly said, "Wait. What's wrong? His Majesty is a good man. He's also a good emperor. It's rare to see such a person." The old middle-aged official frowned. "You guys. He wants to benefit the world. If you guys want to harm him." "Ha." The person laughed coldly. "We're not interested in the affairs of mortals." With that said, his figure flashed and disappeared. The middle-aged official shook his head and sighed. He then released his hands that were gripping his sleeves tightly behind his back before continuing to walk forward. But just as he reached the courtyard, he knew that something had happened. The Jinwu guards on night duty rushed to the door with their weapons unsheathed. There were sounds of argument in the study. From afar, he could see 2 figures reflected by the candlelight in the room on the window. He could tell at a glance that the one walking back and forth was His Majesty. The other stood by the window and didn't speak. Is he arguing with that god? He was still fine when he left. He hurriedly rushed over and 2 people held him up. What's going on? The middle-aged official lowered his voice and shouted angrily, "What are you guys doing? Go and protect His Majesty." His Majesty he. Just as the Jinwu guard said these few words, they heard Ing Juren shout from the room, "Get away from him! Gao Yuliang, get them out of here! What are you doing? Making fun of me?" The old middle-aged official was stunned. After thinking for a while, he shouted in a low voice, "Retreat, retreat! Didn't you hear what His Majesty said?" The Jinwu guards looked at each other. One of the leaders was about to speak, but Ing Juren shouted angrily from the room, "Scram!" Only then did he hurriedly give the order. The group of people hurriedly retreated. The old middle-aged official remained in the courtyard. Then he heard Li Yunxin laugh coldly, "I think you've been an emperor for too long that you've forgotten your surname." He suddenly raised his voice, "You think you're qualified to negotiate with me? You want to cultivate and live forever? I'll call you a ghost cultivator, okay? Go learn from Emperor Qing and Emperor Yu, go die?" If you don't even dare to die, how can you ask for immortality? Ingjuren immediately shouted, "Today my world is," but the figure in the room suddenly disappeared. A whirlwind suddenly appeared in the sky, roaring as it headed south. The middle-aged official realized that the god had left. He hurriedly pushed the door open and rushed into the room, just in time to see His Majesty pull out the black knife from the wall and cut his own throat. A chill shot up from his tailbone to the top of his skull. He immediately rushed forward, grabbed the back of the knife with both hands, lowered his body and knelt down. "Your Majesty!" Seeing him, His Majesty's eyes were wide open, bloodshot, and he shouted, "Scram!" The middle-aged official gritted his teeth and said, "Your Majesty, have you forgotten what you wanted to do? Your Majesty's Black Stockade Fort helped so many poor people, was it just for immortality? I know that this is a knot in your Majesty's heart, but there's something I haven't asked. Has your Majesty been blinded? Have you forgotten what you really want?" Ingjuren was stunned. His body stood there like a block of wood, his hand holding the knife so tightly that it made a cracking sound. Only then did the middle-aged official dare to slowly pry open his fingers one by one, held the knife in his arms, and continued to persuade while kneeling, "Cultivation, your Majesty, cultivation. A day in the mountains, 1,000 years in the world. When the cultivators take a nap, decades will pass in the world, they can live for hundreds or thousands of years, but what's the difference between them and us? They're just living in vain. We mortals are alive every day and we've seen so many good things. Speaking of supernatural power, your Majesty already has supernatural power. With a decree, thousands of soldiers and horses will die for your Majesty. Even cultivators can't do that. Your Majesty, you're now a living god in the world." He persuaded for a full 15 minutes. Only then did Ingjuren's expression become listless. He stepped back disappointedly, holding the table and sitting back on the chair. After a long silence, he reached out to wipe the sweat on his forehead. "But..." He opened his mouth but his lips were trembling. "But I've already offended him. It can still be remedied, your Majesty." The middle-aged official hurriedly said, "Even an immortal is a human. Everyone has their likes and dislikes. Your Majesty, if you cater to his liking..." Ingjuren shook his head. "It's too late, too late. It was a good thing that he came to see me tonight. He told me about his father, but unfortunately I was blinded by greed." The middle-aged official's eyes lit up, then asked his father to make a fuss. His father is also a cultivator. He's now the leader of the dragon cult of our Rome kingdom, so worship his father, your Majesty. Be the leader of the sovereign sect. Ask people to build a temple and make a golden body. He saw what you've done, so he must feel your sincerity. You won't be angry forever. You two have some feelings for each other." Ingjuren shook his head and waved his hand. "Alas, forget it, forget it. Go and do it, go and do it. I don't want to think about these things tonight." The middle-aged official sighed and helped him up. Then he said, "Your Majesty, rest assured. I'll go and do it tonight. But your Majesty, what does the father of the sect leader look like? Or is it enough to make a dignified golden body for him?" Ingjuren held his forehead and waved his hand weakly. "Of course his father looks like him. You've seen him before, so make him look older. Go, let me have some time alone." The middle-aged official agreed. He looked at him worriedly a few more times, then pushed the door open and hurried out. Li Yunxin watched all this coldly from high up in the sky. He also saw the man who had stopped the old middle-aged official in the alley leave the city quietly and cast a few talismans. Then he sighed and really headed south. At noon on the fourth day, Li Chunfeng finally entered the dark room of Hongtai Restaurant's back kitchen. He called someone and waited for a quarter of an hour. A quarter of an hour later, a figure in white appeared beside him. Li Chunfeng immediately frowned. "I haven't seen him for 4 days. Can you find him even if you have thousands of incarnations?" The man stuck his tongue out and rolled his eyes. "Find him? Do you think he's still the same as before? He's now the supreme sect." Chapter 831. Li Chunfeng sighed. "You should have taught me the method of the incarnation long ago, but you kept pushing it off." That person immediately sneered. "Teach you? I'm not at ease. You even want to harm your own son, who else can't you harm? I'm just doing it for the bigger picture. Don't forget," Li Chunfeng pointed to the sky. "I'm the one who contacted them multiple times before they temporarily made peace with you. What we want to do cannot be separated from Cloud Mountain. If they are not willing, they will all die here. I know you like Li Yunxin. But think carefully, although he isn't a bad person, his temperament is unstable. Because of their own emotions, it was hard to say what they would do. I'm a villain, but I'm a rational villain. I won't act on impulse and the risk is controllable. Working with a villain like me is much more reassuring than working with him. Moreover, Li Chunfeng sneered. When you killed your brother, the Black Yama King, didn't you think about the fact that you could harm even him? Who else can't you harm? Bai Yanjun narrowed his eyes and stared at him. After a while he said, if it wasn't for that Shenmu who insisted on getting all that messy information and data from you, I would have killed you long ago. Li Chunfeng smiled. It's good that you understand this. You can't live without Shenmu. He's also a wonderful person who doesn't care about good and evil and human nature for the sake of his career. So he can't live without me. He shook his head slightly. If you're not happy, think about it this way. I came from another world. In Shenmu's words, I personally experienced the entire process of the two universes merging and destroying each other. Everything I saw and everything I felt had unparalleled scientific value. With the information I provided, he can uncover many secrets and even find a way to save many worlds. This is the greatest good. In the face of this great good, personal likes and dislikes and personal morals are all insignificant. Only those who can survive have the right to talk about morals. Bai Yanjun frowned and screamed, forget it, forget it. I don't want to listen to your nagging. Say it. What's the situation now? If you can't find Li Yunxin, does that mean something has happened? He saw through your plan, didn't he? I just don't know where he is right now. But I know what he's doing these days. Li Chunfeng sighed. Based on what I know so far, this is a good opportunity to break through his mental defenses. So I should like to know where he is. I ought to speak to him. Break through his heart's defense? Bai Yanjun laughed and narrowed his eyes. Someone can break through his heart's defense? Tell me, what kind of situation is it? Benjun is curious. Li Chunfeng smiled, but his meaning was complicated. He went to see Emperor Rong. It was Emperor Rong whom he had personally nurtured. Said something, mention me? My man on the other side told me that he felt he had really misunderstood me and now regretted it. But you don't know how to tell me about your feelings. Hearing this, Bai Yanjun laughed shrilly. Oh, you believe Li Yunxin's nonsense? Don't you know how much he hated you? Even if he wanted to say this, why did he go to see Emperor Rong? Li Chunfeng looked at him. It's difficult for people like you to understand the subtleties of this world. It's indeed difficult for others to gain his trust, but now it's me. I've been with him for more than 10 years and he can't get rid of me. You say he hates me. Why do you think he treats Lu Gongzan so well? Because that old man takes care of him and treats him well, just like a loving father. How much he hates me, how much he doesn't want to accept the fact that I'm really heartless to him. He will do everything he can to find some evidence, maybe even he doesn't know it himself, to prove that I'm not the person he hates. The most ruthless state for a person is not hate, but forgetfulness. As for looking for Emperor Rong, if not him, who should I look for? He doesn't have many friends in the world. Can he talk to the demons in the city of Wei about this kind of relationship between people? That's why I told him not to see Lu Gongzan. There's an empty place in his heart, so he can only look for me. Now he can't talk to me, so he can only talk to Ingjuren. The fact that he went to see Emperor Rong means that he's already in the game. Bai Yanjun sneered. Since you see it so clearly, why don't you act quickly? Li Chunfeng said seriously, that's why I came to you. I've sent Xie Sheng to Yunshan to modify that thing so that it can launch a thunderous strike. This will take some time, so I have to appease Li Yunxin. You and I have to find him as soon as possible, in case he's out of my sight and remembers something that's not good for us. The White Yama King circled around him and returned to look at him. That's all? Is there anything else you want to ask me? Li Chunfeng smiled. Is there anything else you want to tell me, Yanjun? Humph. Let me remind you. Bai Yanjun raised his hand and pointed to the south. Do you know what Emperor Rong did today? I don't know. Yanjun, please tell me. This morning, Emperor Rong changed into a new robe, set up an altar, and went crying. He said that he offended the leader of the dragon cult because of his unreasonable behavior. He also said that at night, the leader of the dragon cult appeared in his dream and told him to build a golden body for his biological father and set up an altar to enjoy the incense of the supreme sect leader. If he did well, he might be forgiven. Emperor Rong really ordered temples to be built in every province, prefecture, and prefecture. My guess is that if you had been quick, you would have made several copies of your golden body. Don't you know about this? Li Chunfeng smiled. Li Yunxin talked to him about love, but he asked for immortality from Li Yunxin. My son left in disappointment and anger, and Emperor Rong panicked. It's not surprising that he wanted to use this method to please him. Bai Yanjun laughed loudly, his voice so sharp that it almost pierced the eardrums. Don't play dumb in front of me. You're not an idiot. Don't you think that Li Yunxin and Emperor Rong are putting on a show? I told you to think this way and then attach your spiritual qi to the golden body. You're still a human now. In the future, when you have a dispute, you can ask people to worship your golden body. When the wishes of hundreds of millions of people pour into your body, you'll be dead. Don't forget why Li Yunxin couldn't live and had to take over the dragon's body. Oh, that kind of thing. Li Chunfeng blinked. How do you know that I didn't ask him to do that? Bai Yanjun was stunned. What? A few days ago, I drew my own spiritual qi and gave it to him. Li Chunfeng sighed and waved his hand. This is a dose of tiger-wolf medicine. It's also to defeat him. Yanjun, you should know that since it's a tiger-wolf medicine, it can save people and kill people. If he was the original, he would have believed me. This will make him believe me even more. If he doesn't believe me, I'm not worried. Even if what you said is true, it's not a big deal. Besides, I'm more willing to believe that people are good. My son isn't so vicious. The White Hell Lord stared at him again and again, not knowing what to say to him. He could only laugh strangely and then laugh coldly. He shook his head and pointed at him, then turned and disappeared. Chapter 832. After a while, Li Chunfeng sneered and left the secret room with his hands behind his back. This was one of the Freemasonry's many nodes on Midland. These people, from a rational point of view, they couldn't disagree with his plan, but they always mocked and ridiculed him. Do what you think is right and don't do what you think is wrong. It was such a simple principle. But few people in this world understood it. In this regard, they couldn't compare to his son. They were just a bunch of hypocrites. No wonder the world had become like this because of them. As soon as he returned to the kitchen, the waiter came over and whispered, I found Li Yunxin. Li Chunfeng was relieved to hear this. Where is he? The waiter led him to the main hall. He pointed outside the door, look over there. He then saw Li Yunxin sitting on the other side of the street where Hong Tai restaurant was located, diagonally across from it. It was a breakfast shop that shouldn't have been open near Hong Tai restaurant. However, the owner of the shop was the brother-in-law of Hong Tai restaurant's shopkeeper, so the breakfast of some of the restaurant's guests came from this shop. It was just past noon and the shop was about to close. However, Li Yunxin was eating at a table by the street, and the shopkeeper was serving him in the shop. He didn't look unhappy, so he must have earned a lot of money. Li Chunfeng looked at him for a while, then walked out. He walked past 2 carriages and arrived at the other side. He walked a few more steps and entered the shop. He saw that on the table in front of Li Yunxin were fried fruits, sugar cakes, sweet garlic, salted pork, and half a bowl of seasoned tofu pudding. He sat down opposite Li Yunxin and looked at him with a smile. I heard that you went to see Emperor Rong these days, but it didn't go well. What happened? Li Yunxin snorted and put the spoon into his bowl. I wanted to see an old friend. But it turned out to be boring. Then I remembered that there was an old friend I wanted to see. But I didn't find him. Li Chunfeng smiled. Let me guess. You don't have many friends and you don't have many close friends. So, you want to see Su Yusong? Li Yunxin sighed and picked up the spoon again. He ate in small bites, not to fill his stomach but to savor the taste. While eating he said, you guessed right. But now he did not call himself Su Yusong. That name had been used by the former fake sage. He only called himself Su Sheng. The last time they parted, his incarnation had already completed the tribulation. There should be another incarnation walking in the world. I thought that now that I was the Grand Supreme, I should be able to find him. But I have no clue. Li Chunfeng pondered for a moment. The saints of the past must have had their own unique methods as well. Li Yunxin looked up at him and said, yes. So? He looked as if he wanted to say something but hesitated. But after hesitating for a while, he smiled and said, forget it. Li Chunfeng immediately said, there's nothing we can't talk about right now. Whatever I can do, I will do it for you. Li Yunxin smiled and raised his eyebrows but didn't say anything. He ate a few more mouthfuls before saying, that's why. Having a solid foundation along the way is very convenient. But my foundation is not solid. That's it. Li Chunfeng's eyes softened, and his smile became warm. Yunshan needs some time to accumulate energy, and Xiexing's transformation will be slow. Since there's nothing to do, I'll help you. I'll tell you everything I haven't told you before. Li Yunxin smiled faintly. You don't have to say that anymore. He looked at Li Chunfeng, who was stunned for a moment. Do whatever you can for me no matter how guilty you are and so on. To be honest. He stared at the empty bowl in front of him for a while and shook his head. You've given me enough. Li Chuanfeng's lips suddenly trembled. He took a deep breath and said involuntarily, Yunxin. Li Yunxin smiled sadly. You still don't know my previous life, do you? In my previous life I lived a very unreasonable life. I lived with an old man since I was a child. It was still noon when he began to talk about his past without reservation. But when he finished, the sun was already setting in the west. The wind was blowing in the street, and a few withered twigs and leaves, which had sprouted from under the snow which had melted away a few days before, were tossed to and fro. The pedestrians were afraid of the chill of the early spring dusk, so they wrapped their clothes and hurried away. There were 2 old trees at the corner of the street outside the shop. They hadn't grown luxuriant leaves yet. Contrasted with the sunlight, they looked desolate. The shopkeeper of the shop stayed with the 2 people at a distance. He lit a stove with hot water on it. Occasionally he would come to refill the tea and water, or he would listen to orders to buy some snacks from other shops nearby. Although what he heard was far different from what Li Yunxin had said, he gradually realized that these 2 nobles who shouldn't have appeared in his shop seemed to have fallen in love. The slightly older one sighed as he listened. At first he was a little curious, but as he listened, his expression became solemn. He must have been deeply touched by something. As for the young man, his expression didn't change much, and he always had a faint smile on his face. But from his years of experience in reading people, the shopkeeper could tell that he was forcing himself to smile. It seemed that he still couldn't let go of what he had said. The shopkeeper was very interested in what they were talking about. However, even though he heard every word, he couldn't figure out what they meant. But he didn't care and just watched and busied himself with his own business. He thought that he could have a good sleep tonight, and he didn't need to open the shop tomorrow. The young man gave him a gold ingot, and he earned back a year's worth of money in one day. When the shopkeeper boiled the 4th pot of water, took his 3rd nap, and woke up to turn on the light, Li Yunxin fiddled with the sunflower seeds on the small plate in front of him and smiled. The feelings of my previous life. In many people's eyes, that old man abused me until I grew up. But in my place, I can feel some warmth from those experiences. In this life, after I was born, I lived for more than 10 years. Although I resented and hated him after that, to be honest, I know I'm already satisfied. You gave me more than that old man ever gave me. I thought, forget it. People like you and I, why are we acting like little girls? Why do we want that so-called perfect, selfless feeling? You're not a heartless person. You're just a rational person. When there's a conflict between the two, you'll choose rationality. But in a situation like ours, there are too many choices. So when you took Shengguan Yu away at sea, I didn't worry about her. I knew you'd take good care of her. At this time, Li Chunfeng was already crying. He wiped his face with his hand and rested his arm on the table in silence for a long time, then he put down his hand and sighed. I didn't know these things before. Otherwise, alas. So you've done enough for me. Li Yunxin smiled. In the past I was willful, and in the past you made mistakes. But now, you've forgotten it. Li Chunfeng nodded repeatedly, but he couldn't even say anything. The wind started to blow outside the window. The 2 talked for a while more, then got up and left the shop. Li Yunxin followed Li Chunfeng back to Hongtai Tower. The sky gradually darkened and the wind became colder. There were few people on the streets and the lights were on. But on the north gate of Shuanghu City, 2 people stood side by side, watching in the direction of Hongtai Tower. In fact, their gazes had never left the shop earlier. Really, they've met their match. The long-tongued man in white was full of emotions. Exciting, exciting. The long-tongued man in black snorted. As expected of father and son. If I'm not busy, I'd really like to stay here and watch the show for a few days. Watching these 2 with ulterior motives play the role of a loving father and a filial son. It's more interesting than anything else. The Black Llama King snorted again. Do you still want to slack off? After faking your death, I've been busy all this time, and now you want to watch the show. Be careful that Li Chunfeng doesn't notice and get suspicious. He's even more cunning than Li Yunxin. All right, I'm just lamenting. Bai Yanjun laughed. Let's go. Let's get back to work. But let's make this clear. If we meet Su Yusong again, I'll talk to him. We don't have much time left, don't ruin things. The Black Llama King snorted. So the 2 of them rose with the wind, turning into smoke and dispersing. Then came 4 days of extremely ordinary life. In the eyes of ordinary people, it should have been a very warm time. Li Yunxin stayed in Hongtai Tower, asking Li Chunfeng many questions about the painting Dao. He had figured out some things by himself in this 1 year, while others could only be understood after some guidance. After a year he started teaching again, but it felt like thousands of years had passed. Li Chunfeng told him everything he knew without holding anything back. He really did impart everything he had learned in his lifetime, not concealing anything at all. However, his cultivation in the painting Tao was something that Li Yunxin could only look up to a year ago. After a year he gradually felt that his strength was not enough. After only 4 days he had nothing left to teach. From the 5th day onward, the lessons ended, and it became a discussion between the two of them. In these days spring returned and the weather warmed up. The friendship between the two gradually grew, as if they had returned to the time when they lived deep in the mountains. On the 7th day, Li Chunfeng put down his brush and shook his head with a smile. Yunexen, I have nothing left to teach you. From now on the painting Tao has nowhere to go. It's all steep mountains waiting for you to open up. Today you've truly become a grandmaster of the painting Tao. Li Yunxin smiled as well. The two of them were sitting in a guest room on the 4th floor of Hongtai Tower. Sunlight shone in through the window and fell on the paper on the table. He stared at the dazzling white paper under the sunlight and raised his hand. Even if I'm a grandmaster, I'm only a grandmaster on land. The other grandmaster is over there. So, I've been busy these days so I haven't thought about these things. But now that you've taught me these things, I'm experiencing the feeling of the past again. In the past you taught me from nothing, so I felt fresh every day. I woke up when the sky brightened. I wanted to learn something fun today. But I had to pretend to be a sleepy kid and close my eyes for a long time. You don't know how anxious I was. Li Chunfeng laughed out loud. After laughing there was a moment of silence. Li Yunxin asked, "What are you thinking about?" "How about?" Li Chunfeng thought for a moment and looked up at him. "If you really want to learn more, I can find Qinzhao again." "Really?" Li Yunxin exclaimed, his eyes filled with surprise. "Can I do it now?" Li Chunfeng hesitated again. "Yes, of course. I've told you to learn and ask everything you want to learn." Chapter 833. With that, he stood up and said to Li Yunxin, "I'll take you to a place. Follow me." Li Yunxin frowned in confusion. "See Qinzhao? She's in Midland?" Li Chunfeng smiled. "No, but almost. More or less." He went downstairs with Li Yunxin following behind him. They passed the 2nd floor, the lobby on the 1st floor, and went straight to the kitchen. There was a chef in the kitchen. A smile appeared on his face when he saw Li Chunfeng coming in through the curtain. But when he saw Li Yunxin walk in, his smile disappeared and he widened his eyes. Li Chunfeng stopped before the chopping board and said to the chef, "Go out. There's nothing else for you." The man blinked his eyes and slowly moved away. Then Li Chunfeng moved the chopping board away, revealing the secret passage below. This Hongtai Tower used to be a Freemasonry base. Li Chunfeng pointed downwards. The wandering souls you've seen in the past were created on Cloud Mountain. The more powerful ones and the ones with Taoist names. But there are also some inconspicuous ones that were created by the various bases scattered across Midland. Come with me. He walked into the secret passage first. Li Yunxin frowned slightly and followed. Even though he was mentally prepared, Li Yunxin still gasped when he saw the things in the secret room. It wasn't because Li Chunfeng had hidden such a secret, but because the things here clearly didn't belong to this world. He'd interacted with the wandering souls of the Freemasonry before and felt that they were different and had a different view of this world. But when he saw the equipment that looked like Dragon Island, he finally realized what kind of power they had. If they used this power properly, he wouldn't have to do anything today. But the elders on Cloud Mountain were probably afraid that the natives of the Freemasonry really knew how to use them, so they carefully and strictly limited the information they could know. They were practically begging for food with a treasure bowl. Li Chunfeng stood before the jade-like pillar and turned to Li Yunxin. "I'm contacting the people over there through this. If you want to see Qinzhao, I have to tell her first." Then he turned around, raised his hand and tapped a few times on the pillar. Li Yunxin took in every detail of Li Chunfeng's movements. He realized that what happened a few nights ago seemed to be related to this secret chamber. Li Chunfeng had gone into the kitchen and disappeared. Even with his Taishang abilities, he could not figure out what they were saying or doing. Now, it seemed that the problem was with this secret room. With the technology of the people of this world in the past, it was not strange for them to be able to do this. "He brought me here to see this thing." Li Yunxin pretended to be curious and amazed as he slowly walked around the room and looked around. He didn't know how to behave. If it were anyone else he could have easily dealt with them, but this was Li Chunfeng. This person's meticulousness was not inferior to his own, and his experiences were also very similar. He had to control his emotions and reactions appropriately so that the other party wouldn't become suspicious. Thus, after a few glances, he stood still and became silent. Silence could explain many things and give the other party time and space to fill in the blanks. Then he just had to go with the flow. A window floated on the pillar in front of Li Chunfeng. He said to the window in a low voice, "I have something urgent to talk to Qin Zhao about. Li Yunxin is beside me, we have something to ask her." After saying this, he also turned around and looked at Li Yunxin in silence. The silence between the two lasted about 3 or 4 breaths. Seeing that Li Yunxin did not say anything, Li Chunfeng smiled and spread his hands. "See, I'm not holding back anymore. In the future, if you want to see Qin Zhao or the people over there, you can also come here." Li Yunxin sighed softly and only said, "Sigh." He slowly walked to the wall and reached out to touch the smooth wall, as if he had understood something. What exactly was Li Chunfeng doing? He had done this in the past, to tell some of his trump cards and gain the other party's trust. But not as ruthlessly as Li Chunfeng. Li Chunfeng had brought him to this place and given him the ability to communicate with the people over there. Was he planning to be a lone wolf and do everything by himself? Under the premise that Li Chunfeng was indeed planning to cause trouble. But now he had already solved all his previous misunderstandings about Li Chunfeng. When he saw Li Chunfeng go into the kitchen at the corner of the street, he had thought that Li Chunfeng was doing something shady. But now he knew that Li Chunfeng was communicating with the people underground here. This was not a reason for suspicion. Maybe they really had something serious to talk about. But Li Yunxin trusted his instincts. Once he got rid of those paranoid and irrational emotions, he realized that his instincts were telling him that Li Chunfeng was extremely dangerous. Li Chunfeng must be planning something. As these thoughts spun in his mind, Li Yunxin turned around and smiled. "I used to wonder if there was something wrong with you always looking for them on my behalf. Now it seems that I was being paranoid. But don't blame me, I learned all my cautiousness from you. You've taught me for more than 10 years. I can't just get over it in one go. I've taught you everything I know." Li Chunfeng seemed to be in a good mood. He laughed. "Later, when you meet the art saint and ask her some questions, she probably has nothing to teach you. What's next? If you return to your previous world, what are you going to do? You have to know that although this world is mysterious, you're already at the top. Moreover, we're trapped in such a small world. If we go back to your world, we can go anywhere we want. Over there, you must have a lot of things to take care of." This sounded like a casual chat between the two of them, who had eased up while waiting for the art saint's reply. However, Li Yunxin knew that if what she guessed was true, then none of Li Chunfeng's words would be nonsense. Every sentence should have a clear purpose and he wanted to get something. Without batting an eyelid, he smiled and said, "There's nothing left to be done on the other side. But if I go back, there will be." As he said this, he glanced towards the column. He had a deduction in his mind. The last time Chenin came to see him, she used unconventional methods. Her explanation was that she didn't want the people over there to hear what Li Yunxin said in her diary. But later she said something ambiguous and seemed to be a warning. It was those words that made Li Yunxin vigilant, completely freeing himself from the feelings he had cultivated with Li Chunfeng for more than 10 years. If she really said those words to warn him, this time she should show up quickly. She wouldn't give Li Chunfeng a chance to harm him or get any useful information from him. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, the light on the pillar surged. Qin Zhao's appearance appeared. Li Chunfeng stood with his back to the pillar while Li Yunxin faced the pillar. Thus, he caught a fleeting hint of surprise in Qin Zhao's eyes. He was sure that there was some wariness in that surprise, the moment she realized that he was in the room besides Li Chunfeng. When Li Chunfeng turned around, the expression on Qin Zhao's face had returned to normal. She looked at Li Chunfeng and then at Li Yunxin, smiling. "You finally see my appearance." Li Yunxin smiled back. "I heard that evil Lord Qingshui looks like you. Now that I see you, I know it's not just a rumor. But I'm a little different from what I imagined. I thought I'd be more youthful, but..." He pondered for a while. "Cool. But then I thought, the two sages of Yunshan also said that the art saint was unparalleled in beauty, so it's true." Li Chunfeng smiled. "You two hit it off well. Master, I called you here because I have something to ask you." Qining squinted at him. Her obviously cold attitude was beyond Li Yunxin's expectations. But soon he realized that this was probably Qin Zhao's style. She never seemed to be the kind of person who liked to be polite or perfunctory. She clearly didn't like Li Chunfeng. And she probably didn't like him anyway, so there was nothing to hide now. But Li Chunfeng didn't mind. He still smiled respectfully. "I've been discussing Dharma with Yin Xian these days. He's learning fast. I have nothing to teach him. I can't answer a few questions, but I think Master can. I owe him a lot in the past. I think this time, I have to make it up to him. That's why you're here. Qin Zhao still didn't care about him. She only looked at Li Yunxin. Don't you have my jade slip? I've recorded all my experiences in it. What else do you not understand? I came from an unorthodox background. Li Yunxin sighed. There are too many things in your background that can be easily obtained. But before these days I didn't even understand the process. But this time the jade slip doesn't have what I want to ask either. It's something only you know. Qin Ying rolled her eyes. She seemed to be interested. She smiled. Only I know? I don't even know what only I know. Tell me. Then she looked at Li Chunfeng. You're interested in this too? She was probably asking him to leave. But Li Yunxin immediately said, we've indeed discussed a lot these days. He wants to hear it too. Qin Ying pouted. Go ahead. Li Yunxin cupped his hands at her and said, I had too many questions in the past. Now I've solved most of them bit by bit, but there are still a few things in my heart. If I don't understand them, it'll be very uncomfortable. It's related to painting, but it's also related to gossip. I heard that 500 years ago Yi Di went to the mountains to play. He saw the portrait of a beautiful woman in a temple and spoke rudely. So there was a rainstorm and Yi Di became a drowning country. Then the country was overturned. Was that portrait yours? Did you make the rain too? Li Chunfeng and Qin Zhao were both stunned. They didn't expect him to say that the question was related to gossip. It turned out to be the truth. Qin Zhao laughed. This has nothing to do with me. It's like it's mine, but the rain is clear water. She wants to take revenge for me. I thought about it and didn't think it was a big deal, so I didn't stop her. Oh, did she tell you that it's related to the fight with the Freemasonry? She lied to you. Li Yunxin was stunned and then laughed. I see. Then there's another question. You drew Shinryu and made Dragon Sun. In the end, whether it's Shinryu, Dragon Sun, or people like Clearwater who gathered souls for Shinryu, they can all summon clouds and rain. How did you do it? What I'm saying is, did you give them this ability at the same time you drew it? I've thought about this for a long time, including the abilities of the Pitfall Mountain's Evil King and the Seven Sons. But I didn't do it well. For example, I wanted to draw a little fireman for fun. When it appears, it should be able to play with fire. But in reality, it doesn't have this ability. Is there something wrong with my operation? Li Chunfeng didn't say anything. He listened carefully to every word Li Yunxin and Qin Zhao said. But his expression didn't change. Qin Zhao blinked in thought. Ah, you want to ask that? You're thinking in the wrong direction. I didn't give them this ability. It's related to where they came from. Where? You've drawn a supreme being yourself. You should know where they came from, right? Qin Zhao pointed at Li Yunxin. The one in your ear. These things were summoned from our original world. The foundation of the summoning is the faith and wishes of the people in that world. For example, Shinryu, the people in my world believe that dragons can summon clouds and rain. So I summoned it here. The faith and wishes of the people gave it this attribute. If the people in my world believe that dragons can control fire, then I summoned a fire dragon here. Do you understand? I didn't give them this ability. It came from where they came from. Li Yunxin frowned and thought for a while. Then he said in realization, I see. Whatever the people from where they came from, they really have the attribute when they come here. So, the Ghost Emperor Li is like that too? After he died, he became a Ghost Emperor because of the people's wishes. But in the people's hearts, the Emperor should be someone who protects the country and expands the territory. So, after Emperor Li became a Ghost Emperor, he kept building a ghost kingdom on the ground. You think he'll do that because of the faith and wishes? Yes. Qin Zhao looked at him. It's not complicated. Li Yunxin was silent for a while. Then he said, then, is there any way to change this attribute? I mean, for example, when you draw Shinryu, is there any way to erase its attribute and add something else like making it a fire dragon? Qin Zhao was stunned. But why would I do that? Li Yunxin smiled. I'm just asking. I just thought of this and found it interesting. For example, in my original world, there's a legendary character called Superman. Very strong. If I can make him, he'll definitely be a powerful Grand Emperor. How strong is that guy? He can run into the sun and bathe. When I was young, I always envied this and wanted to do it. If his clothes are dirty, he can burn them. There's no need to wash them. If he's not seen by others, he can send it in and burn it to ashes in the blink of an eye. If I can draw him and make him the Rock King, things will be easy. But the problem is that he's too righteous. If I can make him as bad as me, it'll be good. Ha, you're saying that you're bad. I don't think you're a good person either. Qining smiled and then said seriously, don't count on it. When I drew Grand Shinryu and you drew Grand Monkey King, they were both very powerful. They needed to use a lot of spiritual qi. Now, if there's such a big movement, Golden Rock will notice immediately. It's not like I'm drawing some small fish. It'll be even more difficult then. Fine. Li Yunxin sighed. Pretend I didn't say anything. You don't know what to do either. Only then did Li Chuanfeng's expression change slightly. He exhaled softly and glanced at Li Yunxin. Chapter 834. Li Yunxin said, then I don't have anything else to ask. Go do what you need to do. The smile on Qin Zhao's face disappeared immediately. She glared at Li Yunxin. Are you ordering me around? Li Yunxin raised his hand hurriedly. Don't misunderstand. I just don't want to waste your time. You've already talked so much with me. Li Chunfeng laughed and tried to smooth things over. Master, please don't take it to heart. He's just like that. He's a straightforward person, but there's nothing. Before he could finish speaking for Li Yunxin, Qining snorted again and disappeared. Li Yunxin sighed. You're right. We didn't talk much last time, so I couldn't tell. Now I understand. The speed at which you turn hostile is indeed worthy of being called temperamental. Li Chunfeng smiled bitterly. She's the leader of the painting school. I'm her disciple and you're her grand disciple. She's naturally unhappy that you kicked her out after asking her questions. But since she left so quickly, she probably doesn't hate you. How about you? Have you asked everything you wanted to ask? Yes. Li Yunxin smiled. I have no regrets. Li Chunfeng nodded. That's good. I'll get someone to prepare some food and wine. Yun Shan should have already made the necessary preparations. We'll rest for a day. The day after tomorrow we'll go to the Mocking Palace. Okay. Then let's get drunk tonight. Li Chunfeng stared at him. Maybe this will be our last happy day. So, the banquet lasted from the evening until the sky started to brighten. There were only 2 people at the banquet, but the laughter never stopped. When the sky was dyed red, Li Yunxin left the hall on the 2nd floor and returned to his bedroom on the 3rd floor. Li Chunfeng stayed in the hall. He stood up and walked to the window. Holding the railing, he looked at the rising sun. After a while, he felt a cold wind behind him. Without turning around, he whispered, You know we met with Chen Zhao again last night? Bai Yanjun, who had appeared behind him, walked to his side and said, I came to see you because I knew. You dined with him all night. You are very self-possessed. Li Yunxin won't meet him for no reason. You're not smart. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Li Chunfeng smiled and narrowed his eyes. The early spring morning wind blew on his face, sweeping away the last bit of tipsiness. I must find out whether he suspects anything, whether he has made up his mind to deal with me. After what happened last night, I've already understood half of it. Bai Yanjun was impatient. If you have something to say it quickly. I need your confirmation so that I can go back and prepare a way to remedy the situation should there be a change in the plan. Remedy? There's no need for that. Li Chunfeng turned to look at him. You should know that I don't completely trust those people on your side. If something really goes wrong, I can deal with it myself. If I use you to remedy the situation, who knows whether I'll be the one being saved or Li Yunxin? Bai Yanjun glared at him. That's the kind of person I am. And because I'm the kind of person, I can see what Li Yunxin is thinking. He is indeed suspecting me now. Li Chunfeng stretched. But I'm not surprised. Perhaps it could be said that things had progressed very smoothly for them to reach this point. I would be disappointed in someone like him if he completely trusts me now. Do you know what he said to Qin Zhao last night? Without waiting for White Hell Lord's reply, he repeated their conversation from the previous night without missing a single word. Li Chunfeng let Bai Yanjun think for a while, then raised 2 fingers. In order to deal with me, my son has used a plan within a plan, at least 2 diversionary tactics. I took a risk and gave him my soul formation, so he went to the Rong Kingdom to talk to Emperor Rong. The 2 of them pretended to part on bad terms, but they secretly set up a trap in the Rong Kingdom. They made a golden statue of me so that many people would know my name. Now that Emperor Rong's army is unparalleled in conquering cities, Emperor Rong has also become a hero in the hearts of the people. Once his decree is spread, the officials and soldiers under his command will put their lives on the line, and it won't be difficult for hundreds of millions of people to worship me. When that time comes, the power of faith will rush into my body, and my snow mountain and ocean of qi will collapse. It's a good plan. He sighed. But it won't work on me. He must have known it himself, so it must have been a camouflage of his own, to make me take it lightly. What he really wants to do, is to get my soul. He said so much to Chen Zhao last night and every word made my imagination run wild. But I feel that the last question is the main point. At the end of the day he only wants to ask one question. Can I change the appearance of the soul when I draw it and make it become another person? Yanjun, tell me, who is he referring to? Bai Yanjun blinked. You. I think so. Li Chunfeng stared at the rising sun and let out a long breath. My son is about to move me. He actually asked about this. I guess he wanted to draw a picture of a father who truly loved him. This kind of thing. So, if he were in my position now he would definitely do the same as me. I had no choice. Did I really want to hurt him? Bai Yanjun raised his hand. You should stop, Li Chunfeng. If I still eat and drink I would have vomited last night's dinner. I came here to tell you that if you can guarantee that nothing goes wrong, you better not let him see Chen Zhao again. Do you know how much Chen Zhao hates you? You've really annoyed her by hanging around in front of her. She's always fearless when she throws a tantrum. Be careful that she tells everything to Li Yunxin, and we won't be able to do anything. Li Chunfeng smiled carelessly. After last night I know that she won't. Li Yunxin asked her if there's a way to change the appearance of the soul. She and I both know that there is. But she didn't tell Li Yunxin. So, although she doesn't like me and is willful, she still understands the big picture. I'm relieved that she's there. As for you, don't see Li Yunxin in the near future. Be careful that he doesn't notice anything. Bai Yanjun sneered. Do you think I'm inferior to you because you're omniscient and omnipotent? Then do you know that Bai Yunxin got into trouble with Jinping? Li Chunfeng was stunned. Trouble? What happened to her? Bai Yanjun walked back and forth in the hall proudly. After whetting Li Chuanfeng's appetite he said leisurely, You're also involved in this matter. You told her that Li Yunxin wanted to marry her, but Li Yunxin rejected her in person. That which used to go to Yunshan for the feather robe. How could she swallow it so easily? She secretly kidnapped Dragon Fifth and Lu Jun and ran away. Li Chunfeng stared at him. Why did she kidnap Lu Jun when Li Yunxin rejected her? Bai Yanjun sneered. You claim that you can read people's minds. Why don't you think about it yourself? Li Chuanfeng's face was gloomy. After thinking for a moment he said, to save Lu Gongzan and Dragon Ninth so that he can change his mind. Wrong. If she can really do that, why doesn't Li Yunxin want her? She kidnapped Lu Jun and forced him to ask the ninth young master to show up. She wants to marry the ninth young master to anger Li Yunxin. Nonsense. Li Chunfeng shouted in a low voice. You'll ruin my plan. Bai Yanjun smiled. You can't control her. Li Chunfeng patted the railing. Pacing back and forth on the stage he said in a low voice, This matter can't be hidden. Li Yunxin has his own information channel. This kind of thing. Is it big that Bai Yunxin made it? Hey, it's more than big. That girl spread the word that she will ask Li Yunxin to attend her and Dragon Ninth's wedding banquet before sending Lu Gongzan back. Otherwise she will ask Dragon Ninth to occupy Lu Jun's body and refine Lu Gongzan as well. In my opinion she can totally do that. Her realm is higher than Lu Jun's and she is the apple of Golden Rock's eye, so she has more treasures. After Lu Jun was captured by Golden Rock, he was restrained in order to prevent him from escaping. Now that he is in Bai Yunxin's hands she can do whatever she wants to him. Li Chunfeng was stunned. But why didn't I know about this? What happened just now? No matter how well informed your people are, can they be more informed than me? The earliest your people will send the news here is tonight. If you don't believe me, just ask them yourself. All right. I still have other things to do. Think about it carefully. When Bai Yanjun disappeared, Li Chunfeng immediately took out the talisman. He closed his eyes and listened carefully for a moment. Finally, he opened his eyes and sighed bitterly. Meddlesome. Then he flicked his sleeves and went up to the third floor. He knocked on Li Yunxin's door 3 times and pushed it open. The haze on his face had long been swept away, replaced by joy and relief. Yunxin, I have news. It's good and bad. You should know before you leave. Li Yunxin sat in front of the table and put down his pen. What news? Bai Yunxin took Lu Jun from the Mocking Heaven's palace. Now Lu Gongzan and the ninth young master are out of Golden Rock's control. Li Chunfeng looked at him and hesitated for a while. But she didn't do it to save them. She did it to vent her anger. Li Yunxin stood up. What happened? Vent what anger? Without waiting for Li Chunfeng to speak, he also took out a talisman. A light shadow appeared in the air and turned into a human figure. Li Yunxin shouted, Did something happen to the Mocking Heaven's palace? The figure was blurry and flashing and the voice was faint. But both of them heard clearly that he said, "Master, I just learned about it." It said that Bai Yunxin took her away. Li Yunxin was already impatient to listen to him. He waved his hand to disperse the light shadow and looked at Li Chunfeng. "She wants to kill people?" "Kind of. Not really." Li Chunfeng put his hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry. Listen to me. You refused the marriage with Bai Yunxin, so the girl got angry. She went back to the Mocking Heavens Palace and took Lu Jun away when Golden Rock was not paying attention. Then she forced him to call the 9th young master. Then she said that she wanted to marry the 9th young master and wanted you to attend the ceremony. If you didn't go, she would help Lu Jun to refine Lu Gongzan." "Alas, I didn't expect that she would do such a thing." "Humph. It's not strange at all." Li Yunxin's face was so gloomy. "She is a demon. Demons have an unstable temperament. Even in the past, when we were on good terms, he would kill an entire street of people if he wanted to in a busy city. When did her temperament change? I've said it before, she only loves herself. As for the 9th young master, she used to chase after little 9. She said she wanted to eat him, but he didn't. She was just playing with him. It's not surprising that she chose him. She found a pet who was afraid of her and listened to her. In fact, she was just playing with him." Yunxin calmed down. Li Chunfeng put his hands behind his back and paced around the room. He turned around and said, "Since it's like this, let's do it this way. I know that you value Lu Gongzan and the 9th young master. You must want to save them first." "Of course. Then let's do it this way," Li Chunfeng said in a low voice. "First, I can't persuade you on this matter. Second, if Golden Rock wants to find Lu Jun, it won't be difficult for him. Maybe this matter will be settled in the afternoon. But if the Mocking Heavens Palace still doesn't move tomorrow, there's another possibility. It may be Golden Rock's trap. In this way you have no choice but to see Bai Yunxin. The father and daughter are in cahoots, or the girl doesn't know about it. They're waiting for you to walk into the trap. But no matter which one it is, it doesn't conflict with our original plan. We're going to find him. We'll set off now and find out where Bai Yunxin is." Li Yunxin was silent for a while and said, "Thank you. There's no need for thanks between us." Li Chunfeng smiled. Chapter 835. Wherever Rong Jun's army went, almost no one could stop him. Most of the former Li Kingdom, Yi Kingdom and Qin Kingdom's territories had been conquered. Further west, the flames of war burned all the way to the Tocharian Kingdom. However, there was a kingdom within a kingdom in the current Rong Kingdom's territory. This kingdom used to be the Wu Kingdom and it was still the Wu Kingdom now. However, it was called the Wu Kingdom even earlier. This was because there was a huge parasol tree on the Tiansha Cliff in the kingdom. It was also because of this tree that the kingdom had not been destroyed yet. The area within a radius of 1,000 miles around the giant parasol tree was a vast plain shrouded in a dense fog. Once Rong Jun attacked, the Wu Kingdom's royal family would lead their army to retreat into this dense forest. If Rong Jun pursued them, they would lose their way in the fog, and the 10,000 soldiers would have to go around for more than a month to get out. If they did not pursue them, the Wu Kingdom's army would jump out of the forest to harass them, and it would be impossible to guard against them. The dense forest was vast and rich in resources, making it a good place to defend. As such, although the Wu Kingdom had shrunk, it still stood tall. When Rong Jun's guerrilla military lieutenant Hanzhua and the military magician Yanshiba finally arrived at the Tiansha Cliff after 3 days of arduous journey, they finally saw the huge divine parasol tree for the first time. They initially thought it was a towering tree, but now they realized it was more like a mountain. The Tiansha Cliff was a tall mountain protruding from the dense forest, and at the top of the mountain, the huge parasol tree was almost as thick as the mountain. If one wanted to see the tree, they would have to raise their necks to look at the sky. Only then would they be able to see the huge tree that was like a pillar supporting the heavens. At a very high altitude, lingering fog gathered, and they could no longer see what it looked like above. "Why is it so big?" Hanzhua widened his eyes and wiped away the sweat on his face. "I couldn't see it when I was 1.5 kilometers away." The smokescreen. Yanshiba looked at the lantern in his hand. They relied on this treasure to break through the dense fog in the forest and arrive at the Tiansha Cliff on the 3rd evening. However, the candle flame in the lantern was about to be extinguished, which meant that the spiritual power inside was about to be burned out. He stopped walking. "We can't go any further tonight. Once the guiding light went out, they might have to take a detour. It's getting late, let's rest for the night." Hanzhua frowned. Priest Su said that the Dragon King left 4 days ago, but we still haven't gotten any information today. Taoist Master Su told us to find the place where Bai Yunxin lives in 5 days. If we rest tonight, we may not be able to report to Taoist Master Su. We will also delay the Dragon King's plan. Yen Shiba laughed. I say, buddy, what kind of people do you think I am? They were just small fries. Even Taoist Priest Su, Taoist Priest Su's master, Taoist Priest Su's master's master may not have seen our Dragon King with their own eyes. Just do what you're told. Why risk your life? Besides, well, in the light of our friendship, I will lay down my life with you. I can't help it. The lantern in my hand is a spiritual item that already has a spirit. In other words, it was about to become a spirit. Her spiritual aura has been exhausted, so I can't use my divine ability no matter how hard I try. If we really die after wandering around for a night, we will be delaying the Dragon King and Taoist Master Su's plan. Do you think I'm right? Han Zhuo propped the sheathed long saber on the ground and raised his hand to kill 2 mosquitoes on his face. He then looked up at the huge parasol tree that seemed like it could fall on them at any time. The sky gradually turned fiery red. He sighed. You're right. I was too impatient. Then let's rest for the night. That's right. Yen Shiba happily snorted twice and threw down the luggage on his back. He took out the saber from his waist and cut off the wild grass around him, spreading it on the ground. He then sprinkled some snake and insect powder on the outside before taking out a small cauldron from his sleeve. With a wave of his palm energy, the small cauldron became bigger with a buzzing sound and landed in the middle of the grass mat. It contained nothing but a ball of fire. As the fire burned fiercely, the forest became darker. In a short while, the area behind the two of them was swallowed by darkness. Only the grass mat still had a warm yellow light. Han Zhuo sat down next to the fire and watched Yen Shiba snort contentedly as he prepared food. Yen Shiba was tall and sturdy. When he entered the forest this time, he carried a large bag on his back. This bag was filled with nothing but food. He took out 4 oily roasted chickens, skewered them with a stick, and placed them next to the fire to roast. He also took out some dried meat and pickled goods and laid them out. Those who didn't know the inside story would think that the two of them were traveling together. Han Zhuo had long been used to this. He also knew that the habits of a demon immortal were different from people like him, so he didn't say anything. When Yen Shiba finished, he turned his face to look at the huge tree through the gaps in the forest and said, Actually, I've seen the Dragon King before. Yen Shiba laughed. What? In your dreams? Last year at Manwan Mountain. Han Zhuo picked up a stalk of grass and held it in his mouth. You know, I was a surrendered general. I used to be a citizen of the Qin Kingdom. Last winter, a group of people escorting red soil passed through Manwan Mountain and encountered monsters. In the end, we also met the Dragon King. Later, when we arrived at the Allied camp, we saw the Dragon King and a woman called Jin Guangzi fighting. We all ran away. You should know about this, right? Yen Shiba looked at him in surprise. I know about this, but last year at Manwan Mountain? Weren't you a soldier last year? How did you become a deputy general? Before you surrendered, you were a deputy general, right? Han Zhuo waved his hand. Many people died, but I was lucky. Our platoon leader died and I was the only one left. I gathered some of the remaining soldiers and promoted them to platoon leader. Later, the brigade commander died and I was the only one left. I gathered some of the remaining soldiers and promoted them to brigade commander. Later, the commander knew about me and said that I was a lucky general, so he made me the leader of the bodyguards. In the end, during the battle at Wangshan Beach, the commander died again. No one dared to take me, so he sent me to be a deputy general to transport grain. Yen Shiba slapped his thigh. Damn, I finally know how our General Lu died a few days ago. Han Zhuo hurriedly waved his hand. It has nothing to do with me. Don't talk nonsense when you go back. Yen Shiba laughed. He took a roast chicken from a branch and chewed it without tearing it. Han Zhuo also tore a chicken leg and ate it slowly. Halfway through, he narrowed his eyes and sighed. When we transported red soil to Tongtian Swamp, I was happy at first. I felt that after so many years of peace, there were some new things to do. Who would have thought that the world would be in chaos? Now, I only hope that the Rong Kingdom or other countries will quickly calm the world. The taste of chaos is not good, and I don't know when I will lose my life. If I had the magical power of the Dragon King, I would have, Yen Shiba hurriedly said. Shoo, don't say this. That Dragon King is said to be a Grand Supreme, a celestial being. If you say bad things about him, be careful that he hears it from thousands of miles away. He will come back and make trouble for you. Han Zhuo curled his lips and smiled. I told you that you haven't seen the Dragon King. I saw him that night just like now. We were sitting around the fire. It was night when the Dragon King appeared. As he said this, he suddenly stopped talking and widened his eyes. Seeing his expression, Shiba immediately threw away the roast chicken and raised his hand to throw a small flying sword behind him. At the same time he jumped up and turned around shouting, "Who?" But he was also stunned and couldn't speak. There was a man standing under the giant tree behind him. He used 2 fingers to catch the flying sword that he had thrown out. Seeing the 2 of them, he smiled and threw the flying sword back. At this time, another man came out of the forest behind him. Both Hanjua and Shiba knew the appearance of the man in white who caught the flying sword. The middle-aged man behind him also looked like him. This was Dragon King? Hanjua said as if he was sleepwalking. "You?" Li Yunxin smiled and walked over. He looked at Hanjua and said, "Yes. You were indeed there at Sweeping Mountain. I have an impression of you." He walked to the fire and sat down. He looked at Shiba up and down. "You can refine flying swords. Are you practicing magic?" It was not until the other man also walked to the Dragon King's side and sat down that Hanzua and Shiba jumped up again, took 2 steps back, and bowed to the Dragon King in fear and trepidation. "I'm a disciple of the Divine Dragon Cult, Hanzua / Shiba. Greetings to the President / Divine Dragon Cult Master." Li Yunxin heard this and laughed. He turned to Li Chunfeng and said seriously, "You see, I am also a young man with a slash." Li Chunfeng also laughed. "What kind of story is this from your world?" Li Yunxin just smiled and didn't explain. He turned to the 2 of them and said, "You 2 have worked hard. Let's go back after a night's rest." The 2 of them were stunned. They looked at each other and Hanjua said, "Yes, Dragon King, we are here to explore the way. Now, thanks to you 2. Li Yunxin said gently, "Otherwise we wouldn't have found this place so quickly. You 2 have done a good job. Go back." Then he looked at the lantern left on the ground by Shiba. "Your little lantern is a treasure. Take good care of it. Maybe there will be a good fate in the future." The demon immortal was speechless, but the mortal was calmer than him. He looked at Li Yunxin and said, "Dragon King, you said good fate. I think meeting the Dragon King is also a good fate. Although I don't have any brilliant magic power, I can serve the Dragon King and run errands for the Dragon King." At this time Li Chunfeng smiled. He raised his hand and pointed at the officer. "You are thinking that your Dragon King has great magic power and is like an immortal. So if you stay by his side, if you win his favor, you will be able to leave your mortal body? Or even if you don't have such a good thing, if you get something from him, it can be passed on to your family for thousands of generations and become an immortal?" Hanjua was stunned for a moment and then said seriously, "I don't dare to hide it. Other than wanting to do something for the Dragon King, I do have such thoughts." Li Chunfeng stroked his beard and looked at Li Yunxin. "This is an honest man. Yunxin, what do you think?" Li Yunxin thought for a moment and sighed. "Do you 2 know how dangerous the thing I am going to do is? Do you know that right now in this forest, there are already no less than 3 profound realm demon kings and more than 10 true realm demon kings eyeing us, ready to attack at any time?" Chapter 836. Hanjua and Shiba looked at each other. The latter said in a low voice, "We did meet 3 demons on our way here. They were patrolling in the forest and their realms were not high. At that time we guessed that there should be demons with higher realms here. I thought that maybe they were here to join in the fun, or maybe they were invited by the crane demon." He paused, looked at Hanjua and said, "The situation here is dangerous, but we are prepared. As the saying goes, wealth is found in danger. Although we are not looking for wealth, we also understand that we need to go through hardships and dangers." Li Yunxin raised a hand and Shiba stopped talking. They looked at him expectantly. So he sighed again. "You are prepared in your hearts, but are you prepared for it?" After saying that, he made a grabbing motion with his hand, as if he was grabbing something in the void. Then, some existences really showed up. When the 2 camped and rested, they found a meadow under a big tree. They cut off a circle of wild grass and started a fire, but there were still giant trees around them. So, the 2 of them felt like they were at the bottom of a well. But at this time they realized, the tree was not a tree. It was a giant demon. The 8 demons, who were hundreds of feet tall, formed a circle around the small bonfire. Some were bending over, some were opening their mouths and some were stretching out their hands, which they thought were the thick branches of trees. Looking up, the huge ugly faces of the demons were high up, hidden in the darkness. But the light of the bonfire on the ground made the ferocious faces look uncertain. It was even more terrifying. With just a single glance, the lieutenant and the mage both inhaled a cold breath at the same time. A gurgling sound came from their throats as they fell to the ground. Their bodies were shaking and their faces were sweating like rain. Li Yunxin casually broke a branch that was sticking out of the bushes beside him, so blood flowed out from the cut. Looking at the branch in his hand, it was not a branch at all. It was a broken finger with black hair and nails as long as a small dagger. Even if there is danger, you need to be alive first. He threw the broken finger into the bonfire and beckoned with his hand. Then a clear spiritual power flowed into the two of them, calming them down. The reason why we have appeared now is because you are about to step into the vicinity of the Fiend Lord's Heaven Fiend Cliff. The Fiend Lord was favored by the Golden Rock. Now he had many demon soldiers and demon generals under him. The surroundings of this Heaven Fiend Cliff were filled with illusion traps. With every step he took, he traversed through the ranks of demons. Did you expect such a situation? Their faces were ashen as they shook their heads. Then let's go back. Li Yunxin smiled and said, there are still many beautiful things in the world worth enjoying. Some people don't cherish this kind of thing because they've seen it too many times. That kind of person will eventually regret it. Don't be like that. At this moment, the two of them had lost their courage after seeing the statue-like giant demons that had been suppressed by Li Yunxin's divine ability. They no longer had the desire to force their luck. They got up on all fours, turned around and ran away. They even forgot to bid farewell to the Dragon King/leader. Once their footsteps disappeared, Li Chunfeng tore off a chicken wing from the roasted chicken over the fire and asked Li Yunxin with a smile, why did you talk so much to those two mortals? Li Yunxin sighed. They're working for us after all. These days, I feel like I'm soft-hearted. Perhaps it's because I don't hate them anymore. Besides, he laughed. You heard what Hanjua said. He'll be unlucky if he follows anyone. How dare I keep him by my side? That makes sense. Li Chunfeng looked at the huge wudong tree in the distance. There are more demons here than we imagined. The Golden Rock must have known that Bai Yunxin abducted Lu Jun. It should have guessed that you'd come. It must have stationed a large number of troops around here. Bai Yunxin abducted Lu Jun. I don't know if he did it on a whim, or if it's part of the Golden Rock's plan. Li Yunxin fell silent for a while before he said, I'll just ask. Following that, he waved his hand. The fire in front of him rose for a split second, then it shrank back. However, the seals on the surrounding demons had already disappeared. With a series of rumbling noises, those gigantic demons immediately used their hands and feet to retreat, destroying countless trees and rocks in the process. There was a clamor in the forest as if a huge battle had just taken place. Nonetheless, it was all because of the two people sitting next to the fire. Or to be more precise, it was because of Li Yunxin. There was no lack of advanced demons among the demons, but compared to the Grand Supreme, those below the Grand Supreme realm were mere ants. It was their first time experiencing the fearsome power of a Grand Supreme powerhouse, and they finally realized that even if they were in the profound realm, they could only be subdued by the Grand Supreme with a single thought. Admittedly, it was related to the fact that demons did not cultivate paths, techniques, or divine powers, but they knew that the Grand Supreme in front of them was also a demon, just like their Rock King. However, there were still some who had some courage. A male voice said, what are you panicking about? If the Dragon King wanted to kill you, you would already be dead. Then, the person who spoke appeared among the retreating demons and walked unhurriedly to the fire. He grinned at Li Yunxin. Dragon King, we meet again. It was none other than Lord Yunjian. He had shown himself when Li Yunxin was preaching in Wei City, after the demon bird Zhao Yijun was beaten back to his original form by Li Yunxin. Once Lord Yunjian appeared, the demons calmed down a little. They all turned into human forms and stopped fleeing. However, not many dared to go forward. They all watched from afar. Because once the demonic energy that they were so proud of was suppressed by someone with a single thought, they would lose their confidence and would lose all their courage. Compared to humans, they were indeed more like the instincts of animals that sought benefits and avoided harm. Li Yunxin glanced at Lord Yunjian. So, the Rock King asked you to set up an ambush. Lord Yunjian was neither servile nor overbearing. He smiled calmly and said, Dragon King, you misunderstood. The Rock King's attitude was the same as before. He didn't want to have a dispute and conflict. He hoped that things could be resolved peacefully. He just said that White Fairy did something irrational, and the Rock King couldn't do anything about it. He asked me to wait here in advance to explain to the Dragon King so as not to cause any misunderstanding. Li Yunxin widened his eyes in surprise. Misunderstanding? Didn't Bai Yunxin tell your Rock King that I and the one next to me were going to kill him? Lord Yunjian was stunned. Are you kidding me, Dragon King? The Rock King wouldn't take White Fairy's words seriously. They had an engagement, but it was ruined. She was naturally unhappy. Now I am. It's true. Li Yunxin pointed to Li Chunfeng beside him. We will rescue Lu Gongzan and Dragon Jiu first, and then we will kill our way to the Mocking Heaven's palace. Lord Yunjian became silent awkwardly as if he didn't know what to say for a while. At this time Li Yunxin smiled. I'm kidding. Tell me, what does your Rock King want to say to me by asking you to wait here? Lord Yunjian's expression changed again and again. Finally he forced a smile and said, The Dragon King is really funny. I'm here to say that. White Fairy kidnapped LV June and hid in the evil spirit's temporary imperial residence. Dragon King, look at the parasol tree on the evil spirit cliff. The Cloud Top Palace is on the tree. When the evil spirit built this palace, the Rock King did help. Therefore this palace is extremely difficult to break through. Even if the Rock King was here, it would take a lot of effort. Besides, we invited LV June to the Mocking Heaven's palace not to threaten the Dragon King, but because we were afraid that the Dragon King wouldn't be able to find him for a while, which would delay the lives of Lu Gongzan and Dragon Jiu. Therefore, I'm afraid that the Dragon King might misunderstand that we don't want to hand them over. White Fairy asked the Dragon King to see her. She would definitely let the Dragon King in. Therefore the Rock King said that if the Dragon King really went in, he could persuade the White Fairy. In this way we can bury the hatchet. Li Yunxin thought for a while and raised his hand to interrupt him. Did Bai Yunxin take something important away from your Rock King and hide it inside? Lord Yunjian let out an ah, and asked, What do you mean, Dragon King? If it's not something important that can't be taken by force, why do you want me, an outsider, to solve your own family affairs? Li Yunxin frowned and looked at Li Chunfeng. Am I right? Li Chunfeng also thought for a while. You have a point. Li Yunxin said, You know Golden Rock better than me. You've seen him before. Can you remember what important thing he has fallen into the hands of Bai Yunxin? Li Chunfeng coughed and looked at Yanjianjin. Well, all of a sudden. The demon Yanjianjin finally put on a cold face and said in a deep voice, Dragon King, you are not funny. You are rude. Chapter 837. Li Yunxin shrugged. Okay. If you don't want to talk about this, let's talk about the Cloud Top Palace. What's so special about this place that even the Golden Rock couldn't break through? Yunjianjun was angry because of what he said before. He put his hands behind his back and said, The Dragon King doesn't believe what I said, right? Why don't you ask Li Chunfeng who is beside you? He met the Golden Rock King and had a good talk with him. The Dragon King should believe what he said. Li Yunxin turned to look at Li Chunfeng and said in surprise, You know about this place? Li Chunfeng thought for a while and said, The Cloud Top Palace is not where Bai Yunxin lives. It belongs to the evil spirit. Bai Yunxin's real body is a red flame white phoenix. There's a saying that phoenixes don't rest unless it's a Chinese parasol tree. Therefore the evil spirit moved the Cloud Top Palace to that giant tree. That's why we see it now. In this way, Bai Yunxin's demon palace and the evil spirit's demon palace are merged together. It's hard to say who it belongs to. As for the inhibition outside, the Golden Rock King mentioned it to me. He was still in the seal at that time and his real body couldn't get out. Therefore he only taught him some things. He didn't expect the evil spirit to be so talented in the area of inhibition and did better than he expected. He looked at Yunjianjun and paused. He also said that sometimes the evil spirit ran back to the palace and refused to come out. He couldn't bring her out. I guess this is not a joke. The inhibition of the Cloud Top Palace must be a headache for the Golden Rock King. Yunjianjun coughed. Mr. Li, the Golden Rock King may not like you talking about his private affairs. Li Chunfeng smiled. I misspoke. Li Yunxin smiled too. My third sister is a heroic person who also knows how to act coquettishly. Where is she now? Is she hiding in the palace with my niece? Lord Yunjian finally answered. The Fiend Lord was going to persuade her, but I didn't. But he didn't come out after entering the palace. We guess that White Fairy has trapped the evil spirit as well. Or perhaps, I managed to convince her. Li Yunxin sighed and looked at Li Chunfeng. Look at the trouble you've caused. But at this moment he heard a soft snort coming from the clouds. Trouble? Li Yunxin, do you think I'm trouble now? Then I will give you trouble. I'll show you what I can do if I want to do something for you. If he wanted to give you trouble, how far could he go? It was Bai Yunxin's voice. However, even with Li Yunxin's current great supreme mystique, he could not find where the demoness was talking to. Thus he and Li Chunfeng stood up. Lord Yunjian was anxious. Fairy Bai, little sister Bai, stop fooling around. If it goes on and spoils King Rock's plan, I'm afraid. You might as well say that I'm helping him achieve great things. Bai Yunxin snorted again. What do you know? Do you think Godfather really wants to live in peace with him? I've saved Godfather a lot of trouble by luring him here. Restriction. You want to know what the restriction of Cloud Top Palace is like? Let me tell you, from the moment you saw this parasol tree, you've already walked into the restriction. As soon as she finished speaking, the scene around Li Yunxin and the others changed immediately. It was originally night and a jungle. But suddenly it was bright and the sky was bright. In the blink of an eye, a green grassland appeared in the jungle. The grassland seemed to be boundless, like an ocean. There were no mountains at the end of their sight, only a straight line between the sky and the earth. There were no clouds in the sky and no sun, but it was full of bright sunshine. Moreover, he was the only one. Li Chunfeng, Lord Yunjian, and the other demons were all gone. When he heard Li Chunfeng say that the restriction of Cloud Top Palace was powerful, he didn't take it seriously. But now he finally understood. When the scene around him changed and he was trapped in the restriction, he didn't notice anything. As this thought flashed through his mind, a luxuriant parasol tree suddenly appeared a dozen steps away from him. The trunk was as thick as a person's arms, and the crown was lush like a big umbrella. Two people stood under the tree. One was a woman wearing a red and white auspicious dress. In fact, in Midland, red was auspicious and white was filial. Her auspicious dress was red and white, so it was hard to say whether it was auspicious or filial. This woman was Bai Yunxin. There was another man who was dressed in bright red. Li Yunxin hadn't seen his face, but looking at his appearance and expression, he felt that it should be Lu Jun. Or rather Lu Jun. He looked pretty good. He hesitated for a moment, then walked over and stopped 3 steps away from the two. At this moment Bai Yunxin spoke. Strangely, she wasn't talking to him, but lowered her head and spoke to the grass, as if she was talking to an ant or some other bug in the grass. You two stay here. She looked both angry and proud. This layer of restriction of the Cloud Top Palace isn't something that can be broken by brute force divine arts. Look at the grass around you. No matter where you go, you have to come back eventually. If I don't call you out for a day, you have to stay here for a day. If I don't call you out for 10 years, you have to stay here for 10 years. The best thing is, no matter how long you stay in here, I will only be outside for a moment. Do you understand now? I can make you stay here until you go crazy from boredom, until you kill yourself. These words were a strange experience for Li Yunxin. Because he heard Bai Yunxin say these words 3 steps away, and at the same time he heard a voice coming from the sky, the same words. But the person who spoke seemed to be in the sky. So he concentrated his eyes and looked at the place where Bai Yunxin was staring. He saw some small plants under the wild grass on the ground which looked like moss. He took a closer look, only to find that it wasn't moss but trees. The small trees were like strands of hair, and they formed a vast forest. This forest was hidden under the grass on the ground, and it surrounded the parasol tree behind Bai Yunxin and Lu Jun. And where Bai Yunxin was staring at, Li Yunxin used her eyesight again, and she could see that there was an even smaller ball of light between the hair-thin trees. At this level, the naked eye could no longer see it. Only those with supernatural powers could use their chi to look. But to see clearly what was next to the ball of light was not something that could be done by those below the profound realm. Li Yunxin saw that the ball of light was actually a bonfire. Beside the tiny bonfire stood a few tiny people. They were tiny Li Yunxin, tiny Li Chunfeng, tiny Yunjianjun, and some other demons. He saw himself, also lowering his head and looking seriously at the grass on the ground. It was as if there was an even smaller world hidden in that small world. With a thought, Li Yunxin slowly raised his hand. Then he saw himself also raise his hand. He gradually understood. He looked at Bai Yunxin, who was 3 steps away. So, the parasol tree I saw just now that pierced through the clouds is the one in front of me? Chapter 838. Bai Yunxin raised her head at this moment. It was as if she didn't notice that there was someone beside her and was startled by him. But the surprise on her face was fleeting and she soon sneered, "Oh, that's amazing. It turns out that people who have reached the Grand Supreme level can see my array eye?" Li Yunxin looked around and said gently, "But I don't know how to get out. Are you really going to trap me here for the rest of my life?" Bai Yunxin stared at him. "It depends on my mood." "Are you really going to?" "It depends on my mood too." Bai Yunxin pushed LV Jun beside her. "Say something." This Lu Jun, had always been expressionless like a puppet. After being pushed by her, he woke up, and the expression on his face became interesting. First he saw Bai Yunxin, then Li Yunxin. He immediately shouted, "Li Yunxin, save me! This demoness has lost her mind." As he spoke he started to run towards them. But he looked very funny, he could only walk on the spot, unable to move at all. Li Yunxin sighed, "Ninth young master, don't be impatient. I'm sorry that I killed you before, but at that time." Okay, I know. This LV Jun turned pale as if the Bai Yunxin beside him was a poisonous snake. "Save me quickly and we'll forget about the past." Bai Yunxin frowned and pushed him again. This LV Jun became dull again like a statue. "Now that you've seen him, you should know that it's not fake." She looked straight at Li Yunxin. "Guess why I did this? Why did you let me see him? Why did you snatch him and call you here?" Li Yunxin thought for a while. "Because I refused to marry you and made you lose face. So you want to use this method to let me experience the feeling of losing you completely? But the ninth young master is a good choice. You two used to chase and run, but you didn't really kill him. It's a bit like children playing around. The more they like to bully someone, the more they like that person. If the ninth young master agrees, I have nothing else to say. But now he doesn't like it? Do you want to find a husband who will run away as soon as he has the chance?" Bai Yunxin only looked at him. No one knew what she was thinking. After hearing his words he sneered, "There are many demons imprisoned in the Cloud Top Palace's restriction. They call themselves young talents and they all want to be my husband. If you don't want little Nine to marry me, why don't I introduce them to you and ask you to help me choose?" Li Yunxin laughed. "A young talent among the demons? I think we should forget about it. Anyone who had the slightest bit of resentment would have run to Yinshan to die. The ones left behind are all worthless cowards. What's there to pick from these scum?" He sighed again. "Actually, have you ever thought about this? I never had the chance to talk to you about this in detail before. But now that you've trapped the people with disordered ears, we can talk about it. Have you ever thought about, why do you want to get married? What is it for?" Bai Yunxin was slightly stunned. "What? Why do you want to get married?" Bai Yunxin frowned. "I just want to marry you." But after saying this, she put on a serious face again. "But it's not a big deal for others. I want you to know that there are many people who want to marry me." Li Yunxin laughed again. "Then let's talk about this. Liking someone doesn't necessarily mean you have to get married. This is just a formality. People in the mortal world are animals. They are driven by their biological instincts to mate and reproduce. Later, when they become sensible, their biological instincts are still there, and they still have the desire and impulse to reproduce. Coupled with some social and cultural factors, there is a need to get married, to declare ownership, to declare mutual loyalty, and to support each other. In essence, they come together for survival and reproduction. But later I thought about it more and said that there is such a thing as love. In fact, love is also determined by the biological instincts. It's just a chemical reaction caused by something secreted in the brain. Later it becomes a habit and no one asks why. It's as if getting married and having children is one of the necessary things in life. I think it's because you've been in contact with me for a long time, and you've gradually learned to be human. So, when people in the mortal world want to get married, you also want this form. But you're a big demon." Li Yunxin sighed. "You don't lack food and drink and you don't need others to feed you. Speaking of biological instincts, you and I both know that at our level of cultivation this thing can be turned off like a switch. Or let me ask you in another way, once you marry me, what do you want to do with me?" The two of them took off their clothes and had fun on the bed? Bai Yunxin raised her eyebrows. How can you say such things? That's disgusting." Li Yunxin laughed. "So, you see, why do you want to marry me? To travel the world together." Bai Yunxin stared at him. "Not for those things." She thought for a while and said, "But we don't have to stay together all the time. Mortals are always together and I'm tired of it." Li Yunxin clapped his hands. "That's it. If you don't marry me, can't we travel the world together?" Bai Yunxin was speechless. She stared at him and thought for a while. "You make it sound so nice. Then what's going on with you and Li Xianyu? My situation is special." Li Yunxin blinked. "I used to be a human. But there are a lot of emotions that people can experience but haven't. So, I plan to experience it seriously, including getting married and having children. This is very similar to the tribulations that people in Shenmen go through during cultivation. If I don't experience this, I feel incomplete. Sai, we're all friends. You see, when I was in trouble on Dragon Island, you all came to help me. The ninth young master, Li Xinyu, old Lu Yu, were my best friends in the world. But now you're using old Lu to threaten me and little nine as a tool, Li Yunxin coughed. The five of us are not happy. If everyone is harmonious and the five of us are happy together, then that's true happiness. As for traveling, reciting poems, it's more lively when there are more people. I said those words to you in Shuanghu City because Li Chunfeng wanted to kill your father. I was thinking that if he did such a thing, your father would become suspicious of you. I'll just pretend to piss you off. But in my heart you're still my friend, a good friend. Bai Yunxin fell silent. After a while she said, but I'm still angry. You chose Li Xinyu but not me. It's obvious that you like her more. Li Yunxin looked at her seriously. You really said that out of anger. Because you should know that there's a kind of fate. Even if the two of you are the same in my heart because of the fate between us, or in the words of mortals, when I have to make a choice I will naturally choose her. Or in other words, I'm following the will of heaven. Chapter 839. Bai Yunxin thought for a while, then let out a long sigh and looked at him. So, you didn't choose me because you think I'm not as good as her? Just because of your luck? Yes. Then? Bai Yunxin thought for a while. Now that you and Li Chunfeng want to kill my father, how can we still be friends? Maybe this is the real business. Li Yunxin thought to himself. He thought for a while, then said, I'll tell you the truth. I didn't come to this world to fight and kill. I came to enjoy life. But life has forced me to fight back and forth. Talking about your father, it's the same. I can talk about this for 3 days and 3 nights, but there won't be any result. I can believe that he won't hurt me, and he can be the great master of the Midland, and he won't interfere in the affairs of the human world. Under this premise, I'd be bored to find trouble with a great master. But the problem is, I don't know what he thinks. To solve this, I have to see what I can see. Like now. Right now, I strongly suspect that your father wants to hurt me. He wants to hurt me, so I can't just give up, so I have to fight with him. Otherwise, what should I do? Bai Yunxin sighed. I tried to persuade him. He promised me. He never mentioned anything against you in front of me. But it's very difficult for him to prove it. My adoptive father is arrogant. Li Yunxin raised his hand. It's easy to prove it. Right here in this demon sky cliff. If your adoptive father doesn't do anything to me in these 10 days, I'll believe that he won't hurt me. Bai Yunxin was stunned. What? Because I believe that he will, said Li Yunxin seriously. All the signs show that he will kill me. Bai Yunxin's eyes dimmed. She said in a low voice, then you have to promise me. If my adoptive father doesn't hurt you, you won't hurt him. But, what if he wants to harm you? Bai Yunxin bit her lip. We fiendish demons don't care about right or wrong. We only care about the strong and the weak. But if you want to talk about right and wrong, there's nothing wrong between you and my monarch father. It's just that, 2 tigers cannot live on the same mountain. Since that's the case, when the 2 of you start fighting, he won't be the one to feel sorry for me, and neither will you. I don't blame anyone. Li Yunxin paused, then said sincerely, thank you. Bai Yunxin shook her head and sighed. You really should thank me. Do you know that my true form is the scarlet flame white phoenix? I'm not afraid of fire. Her sudden words seemed to be out of the blue. Li Yunxin was taken aback. I've seen your true body at the foot of the cloudy mountains. Just a glimpse. Then he heard an even stranger sentence. Therefore Li Xinyu can't do this. Li Yunxin was about to frown when he saw Bai Yunxin's expression suddenly change. She shouted, you want to save them? Dream on. Just as she said this, the scenery around them suddenly faded away. The 2 of them were now in a spacious hall. It wasn't appropriate to call it a hall, because the hall had a roof. This place didn't have a roof, so it looked more like a big square with walls. The floor was paved with white jade, and the walls were made of gold and silver. Above their heads was a clear blue sky, and the sun hung high in the sky. If this wasn't an illusion but reality, it meant that the 2 of them were talking for a while, and it was already daytime of the 2nd day. Other than Li Yunxin and Bai Yunxin, there was another familiar person in the hall, the Fiend Lord. There was also another familiar person, Lu Jun. There were also 40 to 50 people, dressed in different clothes and shapes. One look and one could tell that they were all demons. These people should have heard Bai Yunxin's words. Lu Jun seemed to still be restrained, and he still looked like a clay statue. The Fiend Lord took a step forward and stopped in front of Bai Yunxin and Li Yunxin. He said in a deep voice, Ninth brother, listen to me. The confusion in Li Yunxin's heart lasted for a blink of an eye. or even shorter. He realized that the conversation between Bai Yunxin and him in the restriction just now had a deeper meaning. He thought that the demoness still had a grudge in her heart, and there was a knot in her heart that couldn't be untied. That was why she brought Lu Jun to interrogate him, and wanted him to give an answer. But now, she must have made a decision in her heart before talking to him. And those words were just to listen to what he had to say. But what was she going to do? A thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Li Yunxin thought of what she said before, "My real body is the red flame white phoenix." He realized what she was going to do. If his deduction was right, then what she would say next was, "What's there to say to him? How dare he betray me?" When Bai Yunxin was angry, the sleeves of her auspicious robe fluttered, as if she was in the deep sea. "Dragon Xiaojiu, you care about Lu Gongzan, you care about Li Xianyu, but you don't care about me? I'll kill them now." Li Yunxin smiled in his heart. But he kept a straight face and stared at the Fiend Lord with a pale face. "Third sister. You helped me in Yunshan and I don't want to be your enemy. But today the 9th young master and Lu Gongzan must leave with me. Your restrictive spells can't trap me and none of the people here can trap me. You should be persuading her to calm down and be rational, not me. Then you should calm down." The Fiend Lord's eyes never left him, as if he was facing a formidable enemy. "There's no need for the misunderstanding between you to escalate to this stage. It was my idea to ask you to come. I thought, there's nothing to think about. I talked to him in the restriction for the whole night." Bai Yunxin suddenly grabbed LV Jun, turned into a gust of demon wind, and flew up to the sky. Li Yunxin shouted, "How dare you!" When he shouted, his body emitted a strong murderous intent. Even the mystic realm demons would be frightened by the power of a grand supreme powerhouse, as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Not to mention the dozens of demons who were shocked by him, even the Fiend Lord's hair stood on end. He had to use his demon power to resist the power of the netherworld. At this moment, Li Yunxin turned into a gust of black wind, and flew up to the sky. He could only vaguely hear the Fiend Lord shouting behind him, "Ninth brother, don't hurt her. She's sincere." In just 2 breaths, Li Yunxin had flown to a very high place. Looking down, he could only see a small golden spot in the sea of clouds. It should be the floor and walls of the hall that reflected the sunlight. That should be the so-called cloud-top heavenly palace. He was now in the Grand Supreme Realm. He thought that he had to save some energy to not catch up with Bai Yunxin immediately. Unexpectedly, Bai Yunxin's flying speed was much faster than he had imagined. Maybe it was because she was a natural bird. He chased for about 15 minutes before he finally saw a small red dot in the sky. After flying for a while, he finally saw the female demon who was holding LV Jun in her hand. But now there was no resentment on her face. Instead she smiled. "You almost scared me just now." Li Yunxin looked around. There was no one, only the curved ground under his feet. He let out a breath and asked, "So, Qin Zhao looked for you?" Chapter 840. 7 days ago, Bai Yunxin said. Bai Yunxin said, "It's very sudden, but since she's a grandmaster of painting and you don't treat her as an enemy, I think you should do as she says." Li Yunxin thought about it. He realized that 7 days ago was the day he met Qin Zhao under Li Chuanfeng's surveillance and asked him a few questions. That day he mentioned that there was a guy called Superman in the previous world. After doing experiments he would fly into the sun to disinfect himself. He felt that with Qin Zhao's intelligence she should be able to understand what he meant. If she wanted to help him, she was smart enough to create an opportunity for him. As expected, she did it. Bai Yunxin kidnapped LV Jun and used Lu Gongzan to threaten him. This should be to create an opportunity for him, because she wanted to go to the sun. That night he talked a lot of things with Qin Zhao, but it was all a cover for this goal. For this reason he specifically mentioned, "Whether I can draw a different spirit." In order to gain his trust, Li Chunfeng had given him his soul atlas. When he mentioned this again, Li Chunfeng would definitely focus all his attention on it, thinking that he might be planning to do something to his spirit. From the looks of it, his plan of crossing the sea by deceiving the heavens, the other day had worked. He passed the message to Qin Zhao in front of Li Chunfeng, but Li Chunfeng didn't notice Qin Zhao's response. He breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. "Qining told you to use this method?" Bai Yunxin looked at him seriously. "She only told me to help you but not what to do. I thought of this method myself. But let me ask you, what was true and what was false about what you said to me in the restriction?" Li Yunxin also said seriously, "It's all true. I didn't know that you were lying to me." Bai Yunxin thought for a moment. Then I believe you. But Qining told me to lure you into the sun. What are you going to do there? Li Yunxin raised her head to look. Both of them were high up in the sky and the sun had become bigger. It was so bright that one couldn't look at it directly. It was pure white. To foreshadow something, Li Yunxin said, in case my good father wants to harm me. Harm you? Li Chunfeng? Bai Yunxin looked at him in surprise. You think he wants to hurt you? Why do you think that everyone wants to harm you? Li Yunxin laughed. That's right. I just think that everyone except you and your friends are trying to harm me. But it turned out that if it weren't for my persecutory delusion, I wouldn't even know where I would be buried. Li Chunfeng It's hard to say, he whispered. I don't have any evidence, but my intuition tells me that something is wrong. This instinct of mine has saved me many times. This move was also a precaution. Once my delusion comes true, it can at least prevent me from being too passive. It's fine if you didn't know. But now that you know that your ninth brother is in Lu Jun's body, why do you have a good impression of him? Because his temper matches my personality. The evil lord said casually, there aren't many demons like him in this world. Why do you ask? Why did you ask me what I know? Li Chunfeng laughed. No wonder. So you're a rare sentimental person among the demons. The golden rock probably treats you differently because of this. He even gave birth to Bai Yunxin with you. That's true. You're the only one in this world who's good enough for him. His words were extremely rude. The evil lord frowned. Li Chunfeng, how dare you? If it was any other time he would probably be angry. But now he seemed to be worried about Bai Yunxin's safety, so he didn't stop. But Li Chunfeng didn't stop. He continued, since you're so sincere, you're a rare kind person among the demons. The golden rock probably didn't tell you what we're going to do. Otherwise you probably won't cooperate with us. You might even tell Li Yunxin everything. So, women are really unpredictable. Chapter 841. When these words reached his ears, the evil lord finally stopped moving. She stared at Li Chunfeng. What did you say? Li Chunfeng stopped and looked at her calmly. I mean, your Lord Rock doesn't just want to be the demon king of peace. As for having Bai Yunxin with you, it's probably because you look similar to Shinryu. So he's just an emotional sustenance. In fact, the two of us have been conspiring to kill Li Yunxin for a long time. This time he's probably using you to lure Li Yunxin into the trap. It's a good plan. The good thing is that your daughter suddenly threw a tantrum. Everything happened so suddenly and reasonably. Even Li Yunxin didn't suspect anything. The evil lord was stunned for a while. He couldn't believe that Li Chunfeng dared to say such things in front of him. Then he was confused. Emotional sustenance. Conspiring? Both of them? Finally, it turned into anger. No one had ever dared to talk to her like this. You're just a mystic realm. How dare you? Thin scales appeared on the side of the evil lord's cheeks, which made her voice sound metallic. I'm going to capture you and interrogate you about your intentions for saying such things. Li Chunfeng didn't panic. He was still smiling. All right, you can try. Arrogant. The evil lord used a killing move in her anger. Her black hair spread out, and the silver ornaments on her black hair expanded into dozens of small swords. Then they scattered into a rain of swords that surrounded the two of them. Cold light flashed on the swords. Electric snakes slithered around them. A thunderous attack was about to be launched. However, Li Chunfeng raised his hand and grabbed the air casually. The rain of swords disappeared in an instant. The swords and knives turned back into accessories and were held between his fingers. He just looks like a mystic realm. He smiled warmly. Otherwise, why would your Lord Rock cooperate with me? The evil lord was shocked. You're too. However, Li Chunfeng waved his sleeve after uttering those 3 words. The evil lord fell down like a kite with a broken string. Li Chunfeng waved his hand again and kept her in his sleeve. For the sake of Golden Rock, I'll spare your life. He thought for a while and smiled. Yunexian. All parents in the world suffer. Then he shot straight up, and in just 3 breaths of time he saw the 2 cloud hearts 1,000 meters above him. By this time the air had become boiling hot. It was no longer a blue sky above his head, but an intense white light that obscured his vision. The sun became very large. Only then did Li Chunfeng realize that they had been flying towards the sun all along. The sun should be a star, far away from the earth, burning fiercely. But now the sun seemed to be within reach. Li Chunfeng was taken aback for a moment, then he felt relieved. The space in which the heavenly sphere was located had been completely destroyed, so the sun of the past naturally would not have survived. The one that illuminated the world now should be a man-made creation. He had never thought of this before, but now that he had seen it with his own eyes, the idea came to him. It was a little strange, but it should be within reason. Who would dwell on the daily occurrences of the day? He focused his mind and used his eyesight to look at the two people higher up. They still hadn't stopped. Bai Yunxin seemed to be anxious from being chased by Li Yunxin, and she shouted, "Li Yunxin, do you care about them that much? Fine. Now I'll throw them into this sun and burn them clean." After saying this, she spread her wings and dove straight into the white light. Li Chunfeng realized that since her true form was the scarlet flame white phoenix, she should not be afraid of fire. Or rather, she should have a tolerance for this ball of light that was like a real sun that far surpassed the demons in the world. She was smart enough to escape here. But after reaching the Grand Supreme level, she was not afraid of this kind of fire. He could actually go higher, even to Li Yunxin's side. But there was some kind of tiredness in his heart that made him lazy. The two of them were in his sight. The sun was so hot that he had to use his spiritual energy to resist it, so why bother? Then he saw Li Yunxin's figure flash. "If you stop now, I'll still treat you as a friend." He also dove into the blazing sun. Li Chunfeng did not follow. He felt that he was not interested in this sun. He was too lazy to look, and he was too lazy to go in and find out. After all, the situation was under his control. He just didn't know that Golden Rock had tacitly allowed Bai Yunxin to do this kind of thing, and what kind of battle array he had set up with this matter. He just had to wait for him to come out. After chasing Bai Yunxin here, there was no way to escape, and Li Yunxin was worried about the safety of his friends, so he probably would not hold back anymore. Li Yunxin had thought about what the inside of this sun would look like, but he did not expect it to be like this. The surface temperature of the sun in the solar system was about 5,500 degrees Celsius, and the temperature at the center was about 20 million degrees Celsius. The temperature of this one should not be higher than the real sun. Otherwise, the land would have been scorched long ago. And he speculated that the temperature would be lower. Because what brought warmth to the Midland and allowed all things to live and grow was definitely not this thing. It was too small. The real sun was very far away from the Earth, so it could project its energy to the planet relatively evenly. If this sun provided the same amount of heat, everything it passed through would have been vaporized long ago. The heat of the Midland should come from the underground, or from the star world that wrapped the sky ball. And this sun should only be emitting some light, pretending to be bright. But even so, the energy contained in it was still amazing. Because it had been shining for nearly 80,000 years. He thought that since it was a creation of that civilization, it should have a solid body, just like that bright moon. The fuel might come from the nuclear reaction. No, that was too low level for that civilization. And the antimatter. No, whatever he could think of, it should be a relatively low-level one. Or, it was unnecessary, the natural power from the star world filled the world, and the chaotic universe outside was the inexhaustible source of energy. For tens of thousands of years, spirit creatures raised their heads and looked at the sky, but when the sun flashed across the sky, they never felt any strange changes in the natural power, which meant that the natural power and the sun's energy source should be the same. But now that he had actually entered this sun, he realized that his speculation was correct. He just didn't expect that there was no mechanical or solid body in it. It was nothing but a sphere of light. In the center of this sphere of light, there was a spot that had been releasing a terrifying amount of energy. Bai Yunxin's real body stopped beside him, and LV June, who was held in her hand earlier, was being protected by her wings. Therefore, Li Yunxin tried to sense that spot with his spirit power, but then he quickly drew back his spirit power as if his hand was burned by a fire. The energy in that spot was way too strong. It was almost as strong as the netherworld power inside his body. No, it was even stronger than the netherworld power, and no living being could control it. This was probably the power of the chaotic world outside the star world. Chapter 842. We can't stay here for too long, Bai Yunxin said. What are you going to do? Do it quickly. Li Yunxin was silent for a while, then said, I'm done. Let's go. Li Chunfeng is down there, you have to act well. Done. Bai Yunxin looked around in surprise. What did you do? I can't tell you yet. It's not that I don't trust you, but I don't trust your father. He's in the realm of Grand Supreme, he has too many tricks up his sleeves, it's hard to defend against. Bai Yunxin was in the true form of the White Phoenix, so her expression couldn't be seen. But after a while she said, that's fine. Then she threw Lu Jun out. Li Yunxin realized that she wasn't happy after all. If it wasn't for his quick reflexes, Lu Jun would have been burnt to a crisp in the blink of an eye. The white phoenix let out a clear cry and rushed out of the blazing white light. Li Yunxin followed closely behind, rushing out with LV Jun. Li Chunfeng saw Li Yunxin succeed from a few miles below, and immediately transmitted his voice. Yunxin, let people go when possible, don't do anything to her anymore. Li Yunxin stopped and looked at him, then at Bai Yunxin, who had already condensed into a human form, and said coldly, speak. What's the restriction on Lu Jun's body? You're a Grand Supreme, you're so powerful that you could snatch her from my hands, can't you break a restriction? Bai Yunxin brushed her sleeves. Since you want to cut off all ties with me, why don't I tell you something else? When she said this, steam rose from her body, making her face slightly twisted. Thus, it was hard to see what expression she had on her face. My father was sealed and imprisoned by the Art Saint for 2,000 years. Do you know where he was imprisoned? She raised her hand and pointed downwards. It's right here. When they looked down from the sky, they could only see blurry clouds. The spacious hall that they came from was now extremely small, like a speck of dust. He had to use his divine ability to barely make out a small bright spot. But now, with a wave of her hand, the clouds below suddenly dispersed. An extremely tall tree was revealed. The giant tree had many branches, but there were very few leaves on it, compared to the size of the tree. As a result, it looked more like a huge wooden frame that rose into the sky. Even at their height, the branches of the trees were as thick as fingers. The hall from before was like a tiny grain of sand on a finger. Li Yunxin was slightly taken aback. He was secretly shocked. It was not because the golden rock had been sealed here, but because no matter how he probed and sensed, he realized that this tree should really exist. When they first arrived, they couldn't see this tree. Only when they were several miles away did it suddenly appear in their line of sight. Therefore, both Li Yunxin and the evil Taoist priest thought that this thing was a smokescreen. It only made people feel that it was big and therefore it looked impressive. Later on, they were all sucked into the restriction and didn't have the chance to explore the secrets of this giant tree. Only now did they see the whole picture. But in theory, this kind of tree shouldn't exist. Before knowing the secret of this world, Li Yunxin would think that it was a divine tree that had turned into this strange form because of the Reiki of heaven and earth. But now he knew that the so-called celestial techniques in this world were ultimately no different from his world. They all displayed different forms under the effect of a certain set of rules. And according to the rules he knew, this tree couldn't exist. A tree that was more than 10 kilometers tall. It was like a nail protruding from the heavenly sphere. How could this thing grow so big? He frowned and was about to ask when he heard Bai Yunxin say again, since this restriction can seal my father, it can naturally seal you too. Li Yunxin, do you think you can escape? He felt a little warm in his heart. He realized that although the evil Taoist was angry because he refused to tell her what method he had left in the sun, she still used this method to remind him of the possible methods of the golden rock. At this moment, Li Chunfeng said, Miss Bai, is the Rock King also in the Cloud Top Palace now? Bai Yunxin didn't answer him. She just glared at him and then looked at Li Yunxin. What do you want now? Do you want to take me as well? Between us. Li Yunxin smiled but didn't know how to answer her. If it was any other time he could put on an act and the people around him wouldn't see anything. But the person beside him was Li Chunfeng. He was not an idiot. Li Yunxin had confidence in himself, but not in Bai Yunxin. This evil Taoist had always been unscrupulous. If he asked her to put on an act, after a long time, Li Chunfeng would see the flaw sooner or later. He was holding LV Jun in one hand and exerted his strength, trying to find out what the restriction on him looked like so that he could change the topic. Then he would ask Bai Yunxin to remove the restriction, or say something to provoke her to leave. When he released Lu Gongzan and the ninth young master, he still had to find a place for their bodies or spirits to stay. Li Chunfeng said that he wanted him to kill his way to the Mocking Heaven's palace. If he really had ulterior motives, he might lead him into a few traps. Then he could slowly buy time. After leaving the Cloud Top Palace, he could prepare a place for Little Nine and Old Lu. When they were out of danger, he could accompany Li Chunfeng or the Golden Rock. But as soon as his demonic power entered LV Jun's body, he felt a string snap. If the restriction on LV Jun's body was seen as a bag, this string was like the buckle of the bag. It was very intricately designed. If someone below the Grand Supreme wanted to break it, he would always lack a bit of strength. But if a Grand Supreme wanted to examine it, he could use the slightest strength to pry it open. Only those who had a clear understanding of the power flow in the demon's body and knew Taoist magic could do it. Li Yunxin was slightly stunned because of this. At this moment, LV Jun, who was originally in a daze in his hand, suddenly had a lively expression on his face. At first he looked around blankly and then he was shocked and stared at Li Yunxin. "You are Li Yunxin? Save me. Your friends are in my body. Save me." He looked extremely panicked as if his life was in danger. Li Yunxin's heart trembled. "Tell me, how can I save you?" But LV Jun only said at this moment, "It hurts, it hurts, it hurts. I'm in so much pain. The golden rock planted a restriction in my meridians. Save me, or I will explode and die. Your two friends won't survive either." As he said this, his body suddenly swelled up as if someone was inflating his body. This Long Sun was in extreme pain, so he tried to show his fiend god body to resist the damage in his body. But fine scales appeared and disappeared on his face and hands, as if his whole body was imprisoned by some power and he couldn't get rid of it. At this moment he saw Li Chunfeng in the distance and his eyes suddenly widened. "You?" Chapter 843. Yunxin. "Kill him," Li Chunfeng said coldly. "He's right. Once he self-destructs, it will definitely affect Long Jiao and Lu Gongzan. With the two of us here, it won't be a problem to make a body for them. The Golden Rock wants to threaten you with this. You can't be fooled. Kill him now and take his soul alive." Lu Jun's face was already twisted by the pain. Now, after hearing Li Chunfeng's words, there seemed to be some fear in his pain. He immediately roared and tried to show his real body with all his might. But how could he get away so easily when he was under the control of Li Yunxin, the Grand Supreme Demon? His body was like a balloon, suddenly inflating and then being coldly grabbed back by Li Yunxin in the next moment. But Li Yunxin didn't move immediately because of two things. One was Li Chunfeng's tone and expression. Along the way, he had been speaking gently and calmly, as if he and his son were working together, and the world was under their control. It was a kind of extreme confidence. But now, his tone was cold and stern as if he had seen a terrible enemy. But this was just a mysterious realm dragon son. In today's world he was a character that could be easily crushed. The second was because he mentioned the ninth young master and Lu Gongzan. And when he mentioned these two, his tone was warm as if he was also their best friend. This kind of eagerness was too much. There must be something wrong when something was out of the ordinary. Lu Jun had glared at Li Chunfeng and said "you," but was immediately interrupted by him. What did he want to say? So he used his demonic power in his palm to wake Lu Jun up. "What do you want to say?" You. Lu Jun pointed at Li Chunfeng, as if he himself was confused and couldn't believe it. "Why do you look like the golden rock?" However, he only managed to say a few words. A branch of the huge parasol tree under them suddenly swelled up and stabbed at Li Yunxin and Li Chunfeng. That thing seemed to have a life of its own. In the blink of an eye, it shot up into the sky, and when it closed in on the two of them, it let out a hum and spread out tens of thousands of branches, covering the sky and covering the earth like a storm. It was difficult for ordinary magical equipment to pose a threat to the two of them, but the branch of the Wudong tree seemed to have the ability of the Grand Supreme. It was not stabbing at them, but more like reaching out from the void in all directions without any warning. Li Yunxin snorted coldly and waved his sleeves. Those twigs turned into ashes like green smoke. But in the next moment the green smoke gathered together and attacked again. Li Chunfeng on the other hand was struggling. Without Li Yunxin's powerful means he could only dodge left and right, but it was more daunting than dangerous. Everything happened so suddenly that the two of them could only react in an instant. But just as Li Yunxin dispersed another wave of green smoke, he suddenly heard a muffled groan from Lu Jun in his palm. When he looked again, a thin branch shot out of thin air and drilled into his ear. At the same time, it seemed to have taken root in his body. Countless branches sprouted and drilled out of his chest and abdomen. Lu Jun was also a profound realm great demon of the dragons and had a strong body. But now, his abdomen was split open by the branch of the Wudong tree, and his body was destroyed in the blink of an eye. As soon as Lu Jun died, 3 divine souls flew out of his body. Li Yunxin could only frown. He looked at Lu Gongzan and the 9th young master and put them into his sleeve. But at this moment he heard laughter from afar. "Dragon King, you're really good. My Wudong is not an ordinary item, but an extraordinary treasure. But it can't hurt you at all." As soon as the man finished speaking, the wriggling branches around the two of them immediately disappeared without a trace. When they looked at the source of the sound, they saw a ball of golden light. If they impolitely probed the golden light with their divine senses, they would find that they could not see the depth of the golden light, nor could they see any aura fluctuations. It was as if it was just a ball of light, ordinary and unremarkable. But this meant that this ball of light could hide its realm and power from Li Yunxin, a super expert of the Grand Supreme Realm. In other words, it was also a Grand Supreme Realm expert. Bai Yunxin was not affected by the fierce attack just now. Only now did she come back to her senses. When she saw the ball of golden light, she flew over. "Father, you promised me." The golden light laughed again. "What? Did this kid let you down and snatch someone from your hands? I'm avenging you, but you're begging for mercy for him?" Bai Yunxin did not fly to the side of the golden light. Instead, she stopped between them. The sun was dazzling in the sky and the sky was blue. The four of them were so far apart that they were just small dots. But because of their supernatural powers, they spoke and did things as if they were only 3 or 4 steps away from each other. Bai Yunxin said, "Father, I'm done with him. I don't want to see him again for the rest of my life, but I don't want him to die. You promised me, if he didn't have any bad intentions, you wouldn't argue with him." The golden light, the Grand Supreme Rock King in the golden light, seemed to be silent for a while. Then he said, "Sai, my silly daughter. Don't you know why they're here? They're here to save Long Jiao and Lu Gongzan. They're also here to take my life. I won't argue with him, but you should ask him if he's willing to let me, the Rock King, stay in Midland." At this time, Li Chunfeng glanced at the incomplete body of LV Jun in Li Yunxin's hand. That golden rock must have used some method to make LV Jun say those words just now to distract you and me. Then he used his magic treasure to attack. So it seems that this place is not suitable for a fight. He should have prepared for a long time. We have to lure him somewhere else and then act according to his plan. Li Yunxin looked up at the golden light in the distance. Bai Yunxin was still talking to him, trying to persuade him. But that golden rock didn't seem to be in a hurry, as if he was waiting for something. Seeing his gaze, Li Chunfeng sighed in a low voice. "He's waiting for you to suspect me." Li Yunxin said, "LV Jun said you look like Golden Rock and you were suddenly stabbed to death by Golden Rock, which indeed made me suspicious. But this method is too low level. Or maybe you do look like Golden Rock. You've seen him?" "There's no resemblance," Li Chunfeng said seriously. "Golden Rock looks like an old man with white hair and beard." "I'm just asking." Li Yunxin smiled. "Okay. Let's treat it as his plan to sow discord. Then according to the original plan, we should tell him that we're not here to take his life, but to make peace. Then you'll go to him as a hostage?" Li Chunfeng nodded. "Things go well, we'll do that." Li Yunxin also nodded. After a moment of silence, he said, "I also hope everything goes well and goes as planned. I'm having a good time these days. I hope he reins in his horse before it's too late, repents, and doesn't make us unhappy. I don't want to see you die here." Li Yunxin looked at him and said, "Actually, I really want us to go back to Shuanghu City together." Li Chunfeng smiled slightly. Li Yunxin then let go of LV Jun's body, letting it fall to the ground. Then he raised his voice and said, "Rock King, don't you think you're being too modest? You're the lord of a region. Do you think your life or death depends on me?" Chapter 844. The golden light laughed heartily, but it didn't sound like an old man's voice. It could be a middle-aged man in his 30s or 40s. He laughed 3 times and said, "When I was in the seal, I heard my daughter mention you. After getting out of the seal, I knew more about you. That's why I knew which person you targeted would have a good ending. Now that you've gained the favor of those people over there, you're different. If I'm not wrong, Cloud Mountain should be above our heads now. You're the one who's being humble. My poor silly daughter still worries that I'm going to harm you. She doesn't know that if you didn't mean to harm me, I'd be lucky." As he said this, the golden light suddenly expanded. "Xian, the situation now is not something you can control. Leave for now." He didn't seem to do anything, but Bai Yunxin's body suddenly stiffened and she fell straight from the sky. After falling for about 1,000 feet, a demon general suddenly rushed up from below and caught her. She should be placed in Cloud Top Palace. Li Yunxin retracted his gaze and smiled slightly. "You and Lord Dongting handle things very similar." The Golden Rock actually understood what he was talking about and smiled again. "We demons handle things differently from humans. You have a loving father by your side to take care of you, so you naturally feel that demons are heartless and cruel. But if you don't let go like humans, you'll be harming your own child. I spoiled my daughter too much. She relied on my power to travel the world, feeling carefree and happy without knowing the dangers. She actually fell in love with you and thought that there's a possibility of a good ending between us. Li Chunfeng spoke at this moment. Rock King, listen to me. He reached out and patted Li Yunxin's arm, looked at him deeply, then cupped his hands and walked forward. Only when the two of them were in front of each other did he say, "We wanted to kill you in the past. But that was because we didn't understand you at that time. We thought you were like the demons we usually see, vicious and cunning, and that it was impossible for us to coexist peacefully. But when I talked to you before, I realized that you're not mediocre. Otherwise, the Art Saint wouldn't have cooperated with you. You also reconstructed the body of the cat demon under Yun Xian and treated the saints of the mysterious sect with great courtesy. So I realized that it was possible to talk to you. The Cloud Mountain is indeed high up in the sky. But we are only doing this for the sake of safety. You and Yun Xian are both grand exalts. Once you start fighting, let alone the heavenly fiend cliff, even the surrounding countries will be plunged into misery. It'll be no different from the apocalypse. Yun Xinji and I are not in the Midland. Perhaps we will go to the Netherworld soon. If you are not here in the Middle-earth, it will be hard to avoid the demons running amok and war will break out again. Logically speaking, it's the best choice to have you, the Supreme Rock King, to control the demons on the continent. Unless there is no other choice, no one would be willing to make an enemy out of a mighty lord like you. The Golden Rock seemed to think for a while. Then why are you here today? It's to show my sincerity, Li Chunfeng said seriously, and also to save Dragon Jiao and Lu Gongzan. Now that both of them are free, we have nothing else to ask for. The ball of golden light dimmed slightly, revealing a human figure within it. But the face was still blurred, and only his movements could be vaguely seen. Everyone can say beautiful words, but it's hard to say when it comes to real actions. The Golden Rock sneered. If I really feel relieved because of your sincere words, I would have been buried in the belly of a demon long ago. Li Chunfeng, if you don't want us to start a war, I have a suggestion. But I don't know if you dare to say yes. Li Chunfeng smiled. Just say it, Rock King. Please come to our heavenly mockery palace. The Golden Rock said in a deep voice, our heavenly mockery palace is vast and full of natural powers. It's not inferior to those caves in Daotong and Kenzo. You can also cultivate as a guest in our heavenly mockery palace. As long as Dragon King doesn't make an enemy of me, I will treat you as my honored guest. What do you think of this suggestion? Li Chunfeng smiled again. Rock King, you want to use me as a hostage? You can put it that way. I don't really care. Li Chunfeng shook his head. But do you really think someone like Dragon King will be tied down by a single person? We want to live in peace with you because of the current situation, not because of any personal feelings. If the day comes when we have no choice but to fight, so what if I, Li Chunfeng, die? I won't put Yunxin in a difficult position. It's unnecessary for you to use me as a hostage. The Golden Rock laughed. Mr. Li, you're wrong. Although Dragon King is a demon and has a reputation for being cold and heartless, he's actually a person who values relationships. If not, he wouldn't have risked his life to save Lu Gongzan, nor would he have tangled with my daughter for so long. As for the father-son relationship between you two, I've heard of it. It's said that you've long since put aside your former enmity and made up. If you stay in our heavenly mockery palace, it definitely won't be something that doesn't matter, as you say. Li Yunxin stood quietly in the air, listening to their conversation. Halfway through he yawned. He had collected the dragon souls of the 9th young master and Lu Gongzan. They weren't kept in the Huangyu heavenly scroll, but in his palace. Like the remnant souls of humans and ordinary demons, dragon souls were precious things. Without a body to rely on and the opportunity to become a ghost cultivator, they would be damaged. Although they wouldn't gradually disappear like ordinary remnant souls, they would still be affected. Previously, Su Wang, the reincarnation of the sage of calligraphy Su Yusong, had slipped into his palace to reconstruct the tribulation body of the 6 desires for Lu Ling. This meant that the palace was a good place to nurture such remnant souls and dragon souls. Thus he kept them there. After all, the 9th young master's realm was low. He was also affected by Lu Jun's death, and his dragon soul seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. Lu Gongzan, on the other hand, was at a higher realm, so he wasn't affected much. Thus, when he heard Li Chunfeng and the Golden Rock arguing, he diverted his attention to talk to old Lu in the palace. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. Now that he could talk to him again, he felt more at ease. While the two of them were talking, Lu Gongzan didn't stay idle. He first listened to Li Yunxin tell him about the recent events through voice transmission. He pondered for a while and said to him, "I don't think this matter is as simple as it looks." Li Yunxin yawned. Yes. Hearing his tone, Lu Gongzan could imagine his expression. He should be as indifferent and careless as before. He said anxiously, "Brother XN, be careful. That's the Golden Rock, not those demons from before. After all, he's a Grand Supreme. In my opinion, the two of them. You want to work together to harm me?" Li Yunxin used her divine sense to send a voice transmission. There was even a hint of laughter in her voice. "We're just acting. They don't mind being long-winded, but I'm tired of listening. However, they're doing their job seriously and putting on a show." Old Lu was surprised. "You just said you were suspicious. Why are you so sure now?" At this time Li Chunfeng said loudly, "All right. Since Golden Rock King thinks so, we'll do as you say. If Dragon King nods and gives his permission, I'm fine with it. Yanexan." After saying this, he turned around and looked at Li Yunxin seriously. But then he found that Li Yunxin seemed to be absent-minded at the moment. He frowned slightly and looked around. It was as if there was a flying insect around, and he was a cat attracted by the flying insect. The Golden Rock followed Li Chunfeng's gaze and looked at him, only to see his reaction. Seeing him like this, he asked, "What is Dragon King looking at?" "A ghost." Li Yunxin answered casually, as if all his attention was attracted by that thing. A ghost of dragons wandering in the sky above Midland. Li Chunfeng and the Golden Rock paused slightly. Then the Golden Rock smiled. "Dragon King, are you talking about Lu Jun's dragon soul?" Li Yunxin let out a long breath and said, "Yes. The souls of dragons never die. Lu Jun's dragon soul is near the Sky Fiend Cliff. Look, it's right there." He pointed his finger downwards. The two of them looked down with rapt attention, and indeed they found the dragon soul. Lu Jun's soul was hiding in the dense woods around the Sky Fiend Cliff, wandering around. Normally when dragons die, their souls should immediately go to Dragon Sun, who is closest to them. Li Yunxin frowned. But this guy didn't go, he seems to be looking for something. Golden Rock King, I guess he is looking for the Sky Fiend. Is the Sky Fiend hiding somewhere that he can't go? Strange. The Golden Rock glanced at Li Chunfeng and said in a deep voice, "It's just a small thing. Dragon King, what do you think of my suggestion?" Li Yunxin took back his gaze. He stared at the Golden Rock for a while, then at Li Chunfeng. Finally he said, "I don't like this suggestion." Li Chunfeng. He was silent for a while and slowly raised his hand. "Actually, you don't have to go. Many things require choices. Once you choose the wrong path, the result is usually irreversible. I don't want to see you go to the Sky Fiend Palace as a hostage. I'd rather you stand on my side. Even if I have to fight this Golden Rock King, I won't regret it. But now the right to choose is not with me but with you. Whatever you want to do, you can do it." After he finished speaking, he didn't put down his hand. Li Chunfeng looked at him from afar and was silent for a while. Then he said, "Yunxin, the situation is pressing. I'll go to the Sky Fiend Palace." After saying this, he retreated a few hundred feet and stopped beside the Golden Rock. Li Yunxin suddenly laughed loudly, his voice shaking the sky. Then he stopped laughing and his face was as cold as iron. "Good. Li Chunfeng, I've given you many chances. Even until a moment ago, I was still thinking that maybe at such a critical moment, you would suddenly find your conscience and think that you can at least stop before it's too late." He took a deep breath and then let it out. "Since you've decided to go this way, can you tell me first what benefits killing me will bring you?" Li Chunfeng's face was filled with astonishment. Then his eyes widened. "Yunxin, what do you mean?" Li Yunxin waved his hand. "There's no need to act now. Lu Jun is dead, and the dragon soul should possess the evil spirit. But the evil spirit is at the Heaven Fiend Cliff and she came with you just now. Now the dragon soul of Lu Jun can't find her." "I thought about it. Where could she be? She must have been imprisoned and stored away. But before this Supreme Golden Rock King shows up, who can subdue this peak profound realm under my eyes without making any noise?" He smiled coldly. "It's you, isn't it? You're also a Supreme Golden Rock King. When I couldn't find any news about you in Double Tiger City's Hongtai Tower, I suspected this. Only today did I dare to confirm that you, the Supreme Golden Rock, have been hiding and acting under someone else's orders." "What?" "I'm dying of curiosity." The Golden Rock didn't speak. However, Li Chunfeng slowly restrained his expression, and his eyes were filled with disappointment. "Yunxin, I know you're paranoid, but I didn't expect you to still be suspicious of me after spending so many days with me. He shook his head slightly and smiled sadly. What do you think? I came to his side and then conspired with him to plot against you, kill you, and then celebrate with him? Li Yunxin smiled. I thought you would ask Yunshan to kill me. He slowly opened his arms, raised his head and said loudly, Come on. Let me see what you have up your sleeves. Li Chunfeng also laughed. Okay, I'll tell you now. I'm indeed at the Supreme Golden Realm. I did conspire with this Golden Rock King to kill you here. His expression turned cold again. But you should know that there are too many people around you and not everyone can be trusted. If I didn't hide this from you, how could I have gained his trust? How could I have done this? Even a vicious tiger doesn't eat its cubs. Hearing this, the Golden Rock's expression changed. However, Li Chunfeng had already pounced on him. In an instant, golden light shone around him and mist enshrouded him. Countless divine soldiers and generals flashed in the void, surrounding him and the Golden Rock King tightly. Bandit! The Golden Rock roared angrily. So this is what you're planning. The Golden Rock King retreated and at the same time, launched a palm strike. His palm strike looked like an ordinary martial artist's technique. The palm strike was sharp and it was extremely fast. However, apart from that, there didn't seem to be any earth-shattering aura, nor was there any phenomenon like the sun and moon losing their light. However, because he was at the Supreme Golden Realm, he returned to his natural state. A fight between Supreme Golden Realm experts was already the world's top martial strength. All the divine abilities and spells seen by ordinary people could only be superfluous. Instead, all the power and mysterious methods were contained in a seemingly ordinary punch and kick. If it was a common plot in the popular novels of Li Yunxin's previous world, it would be, this palm strike has nowhere to hide. It seems to contain the great Tao of heaven and earth and mysterious laws. Li Chunfeng couldn't hide and he didn't want to. He seemed to have only one goal, to trap the Golden Rock in this space so that he had nowhere to hide. With the power of a Supreme Golden Realm, even another Supreme Golden Rock would find it difficult to escape in an instant if he were to risk his life to do so. He actually took the palm strike head-on. An indescribable loud sound spread out. Li Chunfeng spat out blood, but the golden light restriction around him suddenly retracted, trapping the Golden Rock within it. At this moment he raised his voice and shouted, Grandmaster D, come. The world seemed to have stopped for a moment. At this moment, all sounds became distant, faintly discernible, and lost their reality. Then the sky was torn apart by a white light. The white light, which was as thick as a finger, came down from above and hit the golden light restriction that Li Chunfeng had risked his life to create. The golden ball instantly turned into a blazing sun, bursting with dazzling light and terrifying heat. The ground below was more than 10,000 meters away, but it instantly turned into a sea of fire. Even the rare treasure in the Golden Rock's mouth, the parasol tree, was set ablaze. As far as the eye could see, the entire world was engulfed in flames. Chapter 845. However, this terrifying explosion only lasted for a breath's time. The dazzling white light where the Golden Rock and Li Chunfeng were hit suddenly retracted and turned into a rolling cloud of fire. Thunder boomed high up in the sky, and the terrifying shockwave caused Li Yunxin's robe to flutter. In another 4 breaths' time he rushed to the ground. The flames on the ground were instantly extinguished. Everything that was protruding or sunken, charred trees, hills, rivers, valleys and even the Heaven Fiend cliff, was instantly flattened by this power. Everything that the shockwave passed through turned into ashes. The ground became extremely smooth and flat, even reflecting the blazing sun and fire in the sky. In these 5 breaths' time, the terrifying heat and pressure turned the area that was just a sea of fire into glass. The shockwave then rolled in all directions like countless man-eating evil spirits, destroying all life until it reached the point where the naked eye couldn't see. Furthermore, this was merely the aftermath of the first strike from the 2 grand supreme powerhouses. What followed was an even more terrifying gale. The huge explosion dispersed the air within a radius of several hundred miles, and the wind from higher altitudes rushed down. The wind was as sharp as knives. Even steel would be torn into powder in such a gale. They followed the direction of the shockwave and whistled into the distance, polishing the entire ground. At this point, the ground had completely become a mirror. The thick cloud of fire in the sky also became a fire tornado, engulfing the huge parasol tree that was unexpectedly not destroyed in such a disaster. Then, a figure rushed out like a shooting star with thick smoke billowing behind him. No, it should be said that he was blasted out. The Grand Supreme Rock King, who was surrounded by golden light and flickering, immediately caught up to him and heavily hit him 3 more times with his palm. He roared, "You guys don't know what's good for you." Li Chunfeng was like a kite with a broken string, flying backward for another several hundred feet before he could barely breathe and speak. But his voice was hoarse and choked, as if his throat had been crushed, and he could only use the muscles on his neck to squeeze air to speak. Attack. However, Li Yunxin stood high in the sky and looked at them coldly. When the golden rock caught up to him again, he struck 2 more palm strikes and broke Li Chunfeng's arms, then said, "Attack what? To kill you or him? You are the Supreme One, but now you're acting a little too weak." He took a deep breath, clenched his fists in his sleeves and then loosened them. "I'm afraid that if I really make a move, you'll immediately become lively and give me a slap." The golden rock immediately laughed wildly, "Ha! What a filial son. Do you know that your good father released his spiritual energy just now and used all his strength to imprison me there? It was as if he had opened up his chest and trapped me inside. He wanted to use such a suicidal method to take me down with him. In the end, your Yunshan was useless. Did he think he could kill me with such a strike? I've lost my life in vain." A burst of dazzling light suddenly appeared around the golden rock, and in the blink of an eye, it appeared behind Li Chunfeng and grabbed him by the neck. "Li Chunfeng, by now you should know that this is the result of being too smart and scheming. If your son doesn't believe you, you will die." Awesome. This scene was very much like a fight between 2 ordinary martial artists. One was exhausted and crippled, while the other grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up. However, if one looked closely, they would realize that both figures were very blurry. In reality, both Li Chunfeng and the Golden Rock were still in the midst of an extremely intense fight. Li Chunfeng's figure changed thousands of times in a breath's time in an attempt to escape, but the Golden Rock also countered every move he made, sealing off all his escape routes. Thus, the air around the 2 of them began to rumble, and after another 3 breaths, it became red hot, and then turned into rolling clouds of fire. At this point, all the methods of painting, Daotong and Kenzo were useless. Taoist techniques and cultivation were different paths that led to the same goal. In the end, it was only to cultivate to the supreme realm and strengthen the body. At the peak, no matter what technique it would only follow one or a few seemingly mysterious rules. On the other hand, the supreme experts could observe all things and comprehend the simplest great Tao in their hearts. Moreover, this golden rock had cultivated all the way from the Taoist techniques, so his understanding of Taoist techniques was not inferior to Li Chunfeng's. Previously, the golden rock had gained the upper hand and was heavily injured. At this point, one wrong step after another, and it was difficult for him to counterattack. In a battle between experts in the mortal world, victory or defeat could only be determined by a hair's breadth. It was the same for top-notch cultivators and demons. The 2 of them were locked in a stalemate for 3 breaths' time, but it was unknown how many thousands of times they had exchanged blows. Finally, Li Chunfeng's figure suddenly became clear, as if he had given up all his efforts. He only stared in the direction where Li Yunxin was and said hoarsely, "Forget it. Forget it, you're so cautious. Even if I die, I can rest assured. However, you should know." His neck was in the golden rock's hand, almost squeezing it into a thin piece of skin. Now, these words were said by forcefully channeling his divine power. "I know you have a way to save me. Why would I use this trick to trick you into saving me now?" The golden rock seemed to be very satisfied with the current situation. His face was shrouded in golden light, but one could see that he raised his head slightly. Li Chunfeng. A pair of father and son plotted against me, but I managed to break through the trap. This is truly an unprecedented miracle. Since it's a miracle, I'll let you say a few more words. Let's see what interesting things you 2 can say. Li Yunxin lowered his head slightly in the sky and looked at them calmly. After a moment of silence, he sighed softly. "Yes, I have a way to save you, Li Chunfeng. So you should also know that if you really have no intention of harming me, everything you've done today will not be in vain. After all, you've injured the golden rock. Right now, he's squeezing your neck and asking you to talk to me just to buy time to recover from his injury." At this point, he raised his hand as if he was feeling the wind around him. However, this wind was strong, and it immediately made his palm shine slightly. As strong as the wind was the spiritual qi between heaven and earth. Spiritual qi, the spiritual qi within thousands of miles, even tens of thousands of miles, was madly gathering toward the golden rock's body. Even Li Yunxin could see that this Grand Supreme Rock King was not as relaxed as he looked. Yunshan's attack had indeed caused great damage to him. The intense battle with Li Chunfeng had only lasted for 10 breaths, and he had also used his full strength. Now his injury was indeed slowly recovering. The golden light surrounding his body was originally flickering, but it also slowly calmed down, just a little dimmer. So I feel that, if you really want to help me, you should die immediately. Li Yunxin raised his hand and slowly pulled out the white hairpin on his head. As a result, his black hair fell down and fluttered in the wind. In the next moment, the hairpin suddenly expanded and revealed its original appearance. The wolf-spine raging lion spear. Only then can I feel at ease and kill this golden rock to take revenge for you. The golden rock laughed loudly. Wonderful. What a heart of stone. Li Chunfeng, your son has seen through everything, but you're acting like a little girl here. Now even I can't stand it anymore. His voice suddenly turned cold. I'll let you have a quick death. His other hand suddenly reached into the back of Li Chunfeng's heart. It seemed to have grabbed his heart. With a bang, it exploded. Then he pulled it out, dripping with blood, and hit the Tianling acupoint. Li Chunfeng's remnant soul was about to escape from the Tianling acupoint when it suffered this attack. However, it did not immediately turn into a misty clear light and dissipate. Instead, it escaped diagonally like a loach. Even though the Grand Supreme Rock was dead, his remnant soul would not be stunned for a moment like ordinary people. However, the golden rock seemed to have expected this. His other hand suddenly reached out and caught it. Without saying a word, without hesitation, his palms glowed with an alloy light. The remnant soul was destroyed and turned into pure spiritual energy that gathered between heaven and earth. Then it was absorbed by the golden rock's body. Thus, the golden light around his body suddenly expanded, and he actually returned to his appearance before he was hit by Yun Shan. Li Chunfeng's corpse fell straight to the ground. Because it was extremely high up in the sky, it looked like it was falling very slowly. This soulless Grand Supreme body lost its divine power, so the clothes that were originally illusionary on it also fell off. The strong wind from high up in the sky fiercely washed away the blood, and polished it until it shone slightly, as if the entire body was made of gold and stone. Li Yunxin calmly watched it fall for a while, let out a light sigh and chased after it. He flew to the side of the corpse in the blink of an eye. At this time, the corpse was only a few hundred feet away from the golden rock. For a Grand Supreme expert, it was almost as if they were stuck together. The Rock King immediately used his demon power, and the golden light around his body shone brightly. Good. Let's fight. However, Li Yunxin swept past him and held Li Chunfeng's corpse. He did not even cast any restrictions, nor did he release any demon power. It was as if the golden rock was just a harmless statue that could not hurt him at all, and he did not need to be on guard at all. This action stunned the Rock King. He forcibly stopped the well-prepared strike, and his voice was filled with vigilance. What are you doing? Don't worry, Rock King. Li Yunxin carried Li Chunfeng's corpse down without turning around. Beside him, the giant parasol tree was burning ragingly, like a towering torch. Even the sun was dimmed slightly. I've wanted to have a good fight with someone for a long time. So, I don't want my opponent to be weaker than him. I won't feel happy even if I win. Li Chunfeng is dead. You're the only Grand Supreme expert in Midland. While talking, he had already flown over 10 miles away and landed on the ground. His voice still lingered in the golden rock's ears as if they were talking face to face. So, you're the only one who can make me fight with all of my power without any worries. Fighting against an opponent like you is like studying a rare incomplete book in the world. I have to take a bath, change my clothes, burn incense, pray and recover my spirit before I can fight. He landed on the ground and put Li Chunfeng's corpse down. This former Grand Supreme expert died with his eyes wide open. Li Yunxin stared at him for a while, then sighed and said in a low voice, "Alas. To be honest, when you're a corpse, I feel much better than when you're alive." After a while, the Grand Supreme Golden Rock finally landed. He didn't look as arrogant as he did when he killed the Grand Supreme expert just now. The golden light around his body was dimmed, covering his body like a layer of armor. Standing tens of steps away from Li Yunxin, he slightly tilted his head and looked at him, seeming to be confused. In the end he said, "No wonder my daughter loves you. You're interesting." He thought for a while and said, "You're a gentleman." Li Yunxin smiled and said, "Rock King, please take a good rest. I was going to deal with you too. Now that one is gone, I feel much more relaxed. I don't want to take advantage of you." After saying this, he turned his head and shook his loose hair away from his eyes, then dug a hole in the ground with the spear in his hand. This spear could easily cut the ground of Dragon Island and Penglai Island, so it was very easy to use it to cut the ground here. He didn't use any divine ability, only his physical strength. After a while he dug a hole 6 feet deep. Then he kicked Li Chuanfeng's corpse into the hole, walked along the hole, and filled in the soil and rocks that were as bright as metal. It took him about a quarter of an hour to do all this. The golden rock stared at him, never looking away. The chi activity around his body probed in all directions like tentacles, on guard against any strange movements or sudden attacks from him. But when he saw Li Yunxin standing beside the slightly bulging grave, putting her palms together and bowing 3 times, he could not help but say in a low voice, "Since you feel that he wanted to harm you, why bother burying him and worshipping him?" Li Yunxin sighed softly, "After all, he once made me feel happy 10 years ago." Human. The golden rock snorted. Although he was talking, he didn't stop absorbing the spiritual power between heaven and earth. The strong wind from high up in the sky had gradually weakened, but because of the crazy gathering of spiritual power, there was still a faint buzzing sound in the air. He thought for a while, then said, "Li Chunfeng injured me and he did die. Why are you still so sure that he wanted to harm you?" Li Yunxin didn't answer him immediately. Instead he said something in a low voice, then smiled slightly. The golden rock immediately became alert. "Who are you talking to?" "Lu Gongzan. You know him." Li Yunxin pointed at his sleeve. "He just told me that you were asking me questions again, and that you were stalling for time. He told me to act quickly in case something unexpected happened. But I told him that the Supreme Rock King is always the mighty Lord of Midland. I said that I wanted a fair fight, and that I would give him time to recover so he wouldn't refuse. But if I really wanted to harm him, the Supreme Rock King wouldn't rely on me to stall for time. You asked me some things only because it would be awkward for 2 people to stand face to face and stare at each other without speaking. So, we just chatted for a while to kill time." The golden rock sneered and said, "Lu Gongzan is right. The longer we stall, the worse it will be for you. I know that your Supreme Rock King is made from the netherworld power. You can't gain any advantage fighting against me in Midland. As a result, the thick smoke on the ground rushed into the sky, causing the world to become hazy. If one could jump out of the sphere and look from afar, they might even see a tiny eyeball on the planet. As a result, the sun in the sky seemed even dimmer. Although it was noon, it seemed to have arrived earlier than dusk. After another 3 breaths, Li Yunxin said, "There's one more thing." However, the golden rock interrupted him. "So you're also stalling for time?" "You're not giving me time." The golden rock's aura surged, and the ground under his feet cracked like a spider web. Small gravel broke free from the ground and slowly floated up. "I'm giving you time. You're planning something. That's why you've delayed until now. I've said enough. Take this." Before he finished speaking, he had already launched a thunderous attack. This attack was very much like an ordinary martial artist's attack. He stretched out his claws and went straight for Li Yunxin's chest. The two were originally 23 steps apart, but a pair of golden claws pounced on him in an instant, almost hooking onto his clothes. And now, Li Yunxin suddenly felt a terrifying malice. It was as if countless pairs of malicious eyes were staring at him from all directions, looking for an opportunity to drag him into the endless darkness. The connection with the river of fate in his divine sense was suddenly cut off by some kind of power, which made him lose the ability to predict the first move at this moment. The aura around him was also compressed. Apart from his vision, he could only detect the flow of spiritual power within 2 steps around him. He did not have such a method. Because of this, he realized how difficult it was to deal with the 3,000-year-old golden rock. In the blink of an eye, he held the spear in his hand horizontally and took the attack head-on. There was a buzzing sound. The force on the wolf's back and angry lion's spear was not as strong as he had imagined. However, the ground within 10 steps around him turned into dust, and even the space seemed to have been hit to the wrong place. When he looked into the distance, he could only see shadows of the scenery, and the golden rock's figure was also divided into countless pieces. It was as if he was in a broken glass wall, and each piece reflected a different shadow. But the next moment he knew that it was not as if. Each shadow suddenly became bigger and launched a fierce attack on him from all directions. Those shadows were originally only 2 steps away from him, and now they were attacking him fiercely. Even though he had copper muscles and iron bones, he could still feel the fierce force. It was as if countless mountains were pressing down on him, trying to crush him into powder. The Golden Rock's second attack should have used his unique divine ability. Because he had plundered the treasure vault on Cloud Mountain, Li Yunxin had dabbled in the spells of the Daotong Kenzo school. When the Golden Rock and Li Chunfeng fought, he watched coldly from the side, worried that Li Chunfeng had set a trap, and also to see the Golden Rock's methods. He had never fought with a true Grand Elder who had cultivated Shenmen spells, so he wanted to see what kind of strange divine ability the Grand Elder had. But at that time the two of them fought with strength, so he could not see any clues. Li Yunxin originally thought that since the Golden Rock was a demon, he would prefer to rely on the strength of his strong body. But when it came to the second attack, he realized that he had held back before. It was not that he did not like to use his divine ability, but that he had deliberately held back because he had realized his goal. And now the method he used was very strange. When one cultivated to the peak, all methods would return to one, and the principle would be the same. But as Li Yunxin blocked the fierce attack, he carefully observed. He could not see what kind of method these clones used. If he had to make an analogy, it would be like a martial artist using knives, spears, and sticks to kill people. Although the method was different, it was still a weapon. But now there was a person who just waved his hand, and many knives and weapons appeared in the void. It did not belong to any method known in this world. So he suddenly exhaled and shouted. The netherworld power in his body surged out, and the wolf spine raging lion spear was instantly plated with a layer of black fog. In an instant he hit the Golden Rock clone's Zhonggong acupoint. Every time he hit it, the netherworld power was denser than spiritual power, and it was not any less domineering against the Grand Supreme Rock King's power. Once the clone was hit, it turned into a ray of light and dissipated, and the glass-like restriction around it also dissipated. In a flash the second attack was completely broken, and his vision became clear again. At this time the last word of the Golden Rock's words just dissipated. But the Golden Rock did not make a third attack. Instead, like a fierce tiger that was about to pounce on its prey, it slowly paced a dozen steps away from Li Yunxin, as if it was looking for his flaws. Li Yunxin turned the spear in his palm and looked at him calmly. I have a question. The Golden Rock did not speak. It seemed to be accumulating energy and spirit, looking for an opportunity to make a third attack. Li Yunxin said in a deep voice, This question is, how did you become a Grand Supreme? The so-called Grand Supreme of the cultivators of the celestial sect is just a dead end. And for tens of thousands of years, no demons have been able to cultivate to the Grand Supreme. People say that you can become a Grand Supreme because you have cultivated celestial sect magic, but as far as I know, the real Grand Supreme realm seems to have nothing to do with your subjective will. So, how did you do it? When he spoke, his eyes did not leave the Golden Rock, staring at his every move. But it did not prevent him from seeing that the black fog on his wolf spine raging lion spear had become extremely faint. This fog was condensed by the netherworld power in his body. It should have a miraculous effect on breaking formations or magics made of spiritual power, just like using a stone to cut sand. However, after he broke those clones of the Golden Rock's second attack, the netherworld power on the spear became less. Every time he killed a clone, the clone would take away a part of his power. In the Midland, which was full of spiritual power, his netherworld power was like a drop of ink in clear water. Normally, even if it was erased, there should be a trace. But now he could not feel it, as if it had completely disappeared from the world. He didn't even know how he could achieve this. You talk too much. But the Golden Rock said in a deep voice, You are a Grand Supreme of the netherworld, and your power is much stronger than mine. But I have the spiritual power of the Midland, so I can last longer than you. I don't know why you are stalling for time, but I do know that your netherworld power can't be replenished in the Midland. The more you use it, the weaker you will be. If the time is too long, you will lose without a doubt. Li Yunxin. He suddenly stopped and said, Tie me up. The mirror-like ground suddenly boiled. Countless tiny vines swarmed out like snakes or insects. As far as the eye could see, the ground seemed to have become a turbulent sea. Because once those tiny vines drilled out of the ground, they turned into thicker and longer branches, standing up high like hunting poisonous snakes and pouncing on Li Yunxin. Li Yunxin recognized these things. Before this, Lu Jun was killed by these things that grew out of the huge parasol tree. These things were strange. Before, he could not detect them with his spirit power, and could only dodge and deal with them with his extraordinary eyesight and reflexes. But now, the number of these vines was more than 1,000 times more than before. The entire land was occupied by them. And further behind, the huge parasol tree seemed to have a life of its own. Its roots were pulled out of the ground and turned into tentacle-like feet. The branches on the trunk turned into several arms and suddenly hugged him. The golden rock made a series of hand gestures and quickly rose into the sky. Countless tentacles surrounded him, forming a suit of armor outside the golden light. Hundreds and thousands of golden phantoms surged out of his body, turning into soldiers wielding sabers and weapons, and pouncing towards Li Yunxin along with the wildly growing vines. Li Yunxin sneered. These methods are all familiar. With that he waved his sleeves. Countless talismans danced in the sky like snowflakes, and in an instant, they turned into countless human figures. However, the human figures were slender and dark. If one looked closely, they would realize that the skeletons were the matchstick men that Qin Zhao had left behind in the secret tunnel of Little Cloud Mountain. But now, the surface of those little things was covered by a layer of his netherworld power, and they seemed to have flesh and blood. His speed and strength could not be mentioned in the same breath as before. Even the curses that could only cause people to be annoyed seemed to have become a terrifying weapon. He opened his mouth and shot out the power of the netherworld. The illusions that the golden rock spilled out instantly collapsed when they encountered the power of the netherworld. They did not even have the ability to fight back. But when these little things faced the golden divine soldiers, the huge parasol tree vines that shot out from the ground seemed to have their own consciousness. Once they saw an opening, they would suddenly jump up and climb onto the little person's body, wrapping around it like a python. Therefore, the netherworld power on their bodies was quickly devoured by the vines. The remaining skeletons became weak again, and they were quickly twisted into pieces. But at that moment, Li Yunxin had already taken out 2 more talismans. Suddenly, countless strange divine beasts jumped out of the sky, and like angry waves, they charged in all directions from the sky to the ground. The divine beast in the picture that Qin Zhao had drawn had already been destroyed in the battle with the Sea Dragon King on the ocean. And now, the 100-beast picture that he had drawn with the netherworld power was even more powerful and domineering than the one that Qin Zhao had drawn. The earth-shattering vines were about to turn into a giant ball to trap him within, but they were scattered by the beast tide that suddenly erupted and were completely routed. The other talisman transformed into a huge man that could support the heavens and the earth. He had a curly beard and was completely naked, but he held a huge axe in his hand. Such a rough man would definitely have a gruff and loud voice when he spoke. But when the huge man appeared and roared angrily, it was the sound of a baby crying. But this cry was more than 1,000,000 times louder than that of an ordinary human baby. It caused a whirlwind to form in the air, and even the ground trembled slightly. It was as if the world had not been clear when he cried. It was the first human voice in the chaotic universe. When the huge man landed, the huge parasol tree that had grown arms and legs pounced towards Li Yunxin like a mountain, covering the sky and sun. His eyes immediately widened, and he waved the huge axe in his hand. Open! The axe chopped towards the middle of the living tree. Although the huge tree was huge and towering, it was extremely agile. It split 3 arms to block the axe, and another 3 arms to grab the huge man. But the axe was extremely sharp. It cut through the 3 branches like tofu and chopped the huge tree trunk. It was unknown what the attack had hit. A golden light suddenly appeared in the sky, and then suddenly converged into a tiny spot of light. The golden illusion only appeared for a moment, but Li Yunxin saw it clearly. It looked like a huge fish bone. It was a spine that stretched across the sky, and countless bone spikes lined up on both sides. It was as if someone in the sky had taken a paintbrush and drawn this picture. There was a voice in his heart. Perhaps it came from his subconscious. Get that thing. But the golden rock had already soared into the sky, heading straight for the falling light spot. Li Yunxin immediately chased after it. Give it to me. Chapter 847. When the 2 of them rushed up to the sky, the vines that grew out of the ground had been trampled by the beast tide released by Li Yunxin. The golden-armored divine soldiers transformed by the supreme golden rock were also killed by Li Yunxin's netherworld soldiers. However, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the aureole behind. These netherworld soldiers were shredded into pieces by the vines. However, the giant and the huge tree were still there. The giant axe stopped 1/3 of the way into the tree trunk. The huge tree seemed to be in pain, and its centipede-like branches hugged the giant tightly, not daring to let him move. The giant's muscles bulged and he used all his strength to break free. As a result, the branches let out continuous thunderous explosions, were broken and regenerated but never collapsed. However, after the giant tree was hit, The vines on the ground fell down like worms that had lost their vitality. They could only wriggle slightly, which made people's scalps go numb. After all, the golden rock was originally high in the sky, and it was a natural bird, so its speed was much faster than Li Yunxin's. In just a flash, it had reached the golden light, grabbed the light spot, and hid it in the golden light around its body. Li Yunxin arrived later and realized that this golden rock was different from other demons. He was proficient in Taoist magic, and he had shown amazing divine abilities before. Moreover, he had been alive for 5,000 years, so he must have accumulated a lot of wealth. Although the two of them were equally matched in the previous battle, Li Yunxin had used most of his treasures. Even if he was facing an opponent at the peak of the profound realm, any of his attacks would have been enough to frustrate his opponent's momentum and make it impossible for him to fight back. However, for this golden rock, it seemed to be just a warm-up. If he delayed any longer, he was afraid that he would soon exhaust the painting methods he had prepared before, and he would have to use the demon power in his body to adapt. The painting method was not good at fighting, and the power of the array formed by demon power in the void was not as great as the power of the fine carving and painting. At that time he would be defeated step by step, just like Li Chunfeng before. Thus, he immediately poured the overbearing netherworld energy within his body into his spear and launched a peerlessly ferocious attack. An extremely sharp whistling sound exploded in the air. When the tip of the spear pierced through the void and pierced the golden rock's face, Li Yunxin had just finished speaking. The air surged and there were the roars of tigers and dragons. The spiritual energy that had gathered into the golden rock's body from all directions was also dispelled by the powerful force of the netherworld on Li Yunxin's spear. Within a radius of several miles, the spiritual energy rolled backward, forming a huge bubble in the deep sea. His spear actually caused the entire space to flicker and tremble, as if it was about to break away from this world. This was the technique of the Golden Rock's second attack. The Grand Supreme Rock King couldn't dodge, so he raised his arms to take the attack head-on. With a loud bang, the golden light around his body was scattered by the spear. The tip of the wolf spine raging lion spear pierced 7 inches into his arms, piercing through them. However, in the next moment, a pair of brilliant wings suddenly appeared behind the golden rock's back and enveloped it, plating it with a layer of golden light. He let out a low roar and flew back dozens of feet. However, Li Yunxin's spear followed him like a shadow. Another wave of spear sparks enshrouded his body. The golden light on his body flickered, and there was a series of explosions in the air. Blood sprayed out like mist. The golden rock was in pain and angry, dodging left and right. However, the spear in Li Yunxin's hand was like a ghost, sealing off every escape route. In a battle between martial artists in the secular world, the opponent's possibility of counterattack was sealed, but his sealing off was using the violent force of the netherworld in his body to seal off the spiritual energy within a radius of several dozen miles, not allowing the golden rock any chance to replenish it. Then he used the technique of the painting Tao to form a spear formation, shattering the space they were in. It looked like it was still in the vast world, but in fact, it was equivalent to a prison cell. When Li Chunfeng fought with the golden rock, he was repeatedly defeated because he lost the initiative. Now, in order to seize the light spot that fell from the sky, the golden rock let Li Yunxin take the initiative. The momentum of his spear was like a violent storm, splashing down on the golden rock's face, making it difficult for him to breathe. This fierce attack lasted for a full 3 breaths, breaking the golden rock's protective golden light 13 times before he finally found an opportunity to escape. He was probably frightened by Li Yunxin's terrifying attack. Once he escaped, he immediately returned to the ground. The half-dead vines came to life again and danced around him, firmly protecting him. At this time, the battle between the giant and the giant tree was finally over. The giant was crushed by the giant parasol tree, turning into spots of green light that scattered in all directions. Once they landed, they turned into a peach forest that grew on the vines of the parasol tree. Therefore, the latter was quickly sucked dry and became rotten wood. Li Yunxin did not attack immediately. Instead, he held his spear horizontally in the sky and sneered, "Rock King, what's so shameful about your face? Every time I break your protective restriction you have to protect your face first. Is it so ugly that it can't be seen, or that Lu Jun wasn't lying? Do you really look like Li Chunfeng?" The golden rock took this opportunity to adjust his breathing. The spiritual energy that had been dispersed by Li Yunxin's power of the netherworld gathered madly again. He looked up, his tone no longer as calm as before, becoming angry. He sneered 3 times, "My appearance has nothing to do with you. But your spear technique is not bad." Li Yunxin turned his spear, because I have a master. When I asked the great sage to teach me some spear techniques, he said that he could only teach me staff techniques. He also said that staff techniques are spear techniques and the two are the same. He said that he always killed demons with one strike, but it wasn't actually one strike. One strike contains countless changes and it also cuts off the demon's escape routes. Thus, this one strike is countless strikes. It's a pity that I'm not skilled enough. I didn't learn the great sage's ability to kill with one strike, so I can only use this rain-like spear technique to make up for it. But even so, you should have suffered enough already, right? But I didn't expect you to be stronger than I thought. When I struck 13 or 14 times, you were already injured. I wanted to follow up with a few more strikes, and your injury should have become serious. But the strange thing is that I can't hurt you anymore. Li Yunxin frowned. Tell me, what kind of technique is this? Do you have a lower limit to your health? The golden rock was so angry that he laughed. You really like to ask why. Li Yunxin laughed as well. It seemed that the combo just now had made him feel refreshed and energetic. What I want to ask is what that thing you just snatched. I thought for a long time, but I couldn't figure out what it was. It looked like a fish bone. I guessed that it might be the skeleton of a Shinryu. But on second thought, the ribs were densely packed and it didn't seem like a skeleton. But you were so worried about it. As he spoke, he slowly descended and landed in the direction of the huge parasol tree. But when I thought of Shinryu, I thought of you. There's a legend that said that when Shinryu fought with you, Shinryu lost a scale and you lost 3 feathers. So that thing just now, was it your feather? Pangu the great god chopped down the tree but cut off a feather? He paused, but the golden rock didn't say anything. In the next moment, Li Yunxin suddenly raised the spear in his hand and swung it at the parasol tree like a wooden stick. So I guess this thing is your real body. Chapter 848. The golden rock was shocked and immediately flew over to save him. However, Li Yunxin waved his hand and threw out snowflake-like spell symbols. A brilliant haze suddenly appeared in the air, and countless soldiers appeared on the haze. The leader of the army was a heavenly king in golden armor, holding an octagonal pagoda that shone brightly in his hand. On his left was a young divine general with 3 eyes and a jade-like face, holding a silver halberd. On his right was a young general who was treading on a pair of fiery wheels and holding a red-tasseled spear. Behind the 3 of them were thousands of soldiers, with flags fluttering in the wind and a tight formation. As soon as they appeared, they covered the sky and the sun, stretching for miles. The golden rock bumped into the front of the formation. The pagoda-bearing heavenly king didn't say anything. He raised his eyebrows, pointed out his fingers, and the tower in his hand spun and flew out. Every time it spun, it grew a little bigger, and when it reached the golden rock, it covered him. The 2 generals on both sides held weapons and hacked or stabbed at the tower. Just in time for the golden rock, the Rock King roared and smashed the tower into pieces. The rest of the divine soldiers also rushed over. Normally, when thousands of soldiers surrounded one person, only a few people in the middle could fight them. However, these divine soldiers were like shadows and didn't stop each other. The layers of golden light merged together, and the combination of the golden light was comparable to the blazing sun. For a moment, the golden rock was cut countless times, and a layer of the golden light was broken. These divine soldiers and generals, and even the giant who was fighting against the giant tree, were actually not very powerful. That giant was also a figure that many people in Li Yunxin's previous world knew. If he had been created the same way he created the great saint, he would have been another powerful grand elder. However, when he created the Monkey King, Li Yunxin used the power of the 9 seas. The 9 seas were vast, and the entire 9 seas was almost as big as half of the Midland. If he used such a great power again, the golden rock would definitely sense it. Therefore he discounted it and only drew some magic. Such a creation shouldn't be a threat to a grand elder. However, their bodies were not filled with spiritual chi, but with the power of the netherworld. With the netherworld force, these small fries could at least hurt the Supreme Rock King, even though it was just like an ant biting an elephant. However, as the saying goes, many ants can bite an elephant to death. These countless small wounds stacked together could also cause considerable damage. The golden rock seemed to be anxious and angry. With a loud roar, it broke free from the heavy encirclement. Golden light radiated from his body. Just like Tang Wakshu, hundreds of divine weapons turned into green light and scattered. He had originally thought that these things were similar to puppets. They had a human form but did not have much intelligence. Who would have thought that these divine soldiers and divine generals actually knew when to advance and when to retreat? Seeing that he was powerful, he immediately retreated far away. It was unknown what the pagoda-bearing heavenly king said, but he formed the formation again. The golden rock crashed into the array as if it had crashed into a large net. Immediately his body became sluggish. He could only exert force in the air, but he could not move forward at all. At this moment, Li Yunxin's spear struck the huge parasol tree. It was as if a heavenly god had used a huge hammer to smash the huge tree as a nail. With a loud bang, the ankle-like tentacles at the bottom of the huge tree completely collapsed. It was smashed back into the ground. The golden rock, who was already trapped in the net, spat out blood. Its body flashed with golden light, and it looked like a light bulb whose filament was about to snap. At this moment, the pagoda-bearing heavenly king took out a pitch-black pagoda that looked like an iron rod, and it hit the golden rock king squarely. Thus, the golden rock king's protective golden light collapsed again. It finally revealed its true appearance. It was not an old man with white hair and beard as the cat demon had said. Instead, it was a middle-aged man with a head full of black hair. However, it only revealed its true appearance for a moment before the golden rock king protected its body with golden light again. It was very far away from Li Yunxin, and there were many divine weapons and divine generals between them, so the latter did not see it. At this moment, Li Yunxin was launching his second attack on the huge parasol tree. After that attack, the wriggling vines on the ground immediately lost their vitality and sank into the ground. It was as if countless venomous snakes were startled and snuck back into their nests. However, the huge tree itself was even more agile. Its thick branches danced wildly as if it was angry because of the pain. Li Yunxin's second attack was aimed at the place where the Pangu giant had cut open the tree trunk. That place was still dark and gloomy to this day. The darkness was unusual, and it was definitely not because the light was dim. This was because when he used his divine sense to investigate the wound, he found that it was like a black hole. It absorbed everything: divine sense, spiritual power, netherworld power. It was as if everything would be devoured by it, and there was no chance of escape. When the ancient god was crushed by the huge tree, Li Yunxin took a look. The huge axe in his hand was chipped. The part that had been cut into the huge parasol tree's trunk had disappeared without a trace. This was a very strange thing. He had drawn this ancient god, and there was a subtle connection between him and it. He could clearly sense this thing getting hurt, collapsing, and being devoured. However, he did not feel anything when the axe was chipped. This meant that even the connection between him and it had been devoured. But this connection was extremely similar to the connection between the river of fate. The huge parasol tree was like a pillar that supported the heavens and earth, while Li Yunxin was like a speck of dust in front of it. But now that this speck of dust was about to launch his second attack, the huge tree immediately retracted its branches and firmly protected the wound. It was as if Li Yunxin's attack would take its life. However, these branches were like rotten wood in front of Li Yunxin's all-out attack. The extremely overbearing netherworld power turned them into ashes in the blink of an eye. From afar, one could only see that the huge tree's branches were disintegrating at a terrifying speed, while a dark light shot straight into the tree trunk. The huge tree seemed to have really become a sentient creature. It curled up in pain. Like a centipede, it retracted its branches and curled up its indomitable thick trunk with amazing flexibility, completely wrapping that speck of dust in it. It was also at this moment that the divine soldiers and divine generals above the clouds suddenly stopped moving. Like a marionette whose strings had been cut, their colors quickly faded in the next moment, turning into spots of light that filled the sky and dissipating. The golden rock immediately broke free. This supreme rock king's protective golden light had been shattered by Li Yunxin more than a dozen times, and he was restrained by these soldiers and couldn't move at all. His face was originally full of fear and anger, as if he knew that doomsday was coming. But at this moment he stood high in the sky. He first let out a long breath, adjusted the spiritual power in his body, and then sneered, no longer looking like before. Li Yunxin, can you still get away? Because of his words, the huge tree that was originally curled up like a mountain in the sky slowly stretched out, making it look more like a centipede, revealing Wei River Dragon King. At this moment he seemed to be growing on this tree. Chapter 849. The lower half of Li Yunxin's body sank into the hole where the giant tree was split open, as if he was soaking in water. The space around him was slightly distorted, like the air on the road in midsummer. But no pain could be seen on his face, and he even looked a little surprised. Because until now he didn't feel anything else, except that his strength was slowly fading away. It was as if his whole body was soaked in a pool of warm water, and he was so lazy and comfortable that he didn't want to move. The spear just now hit right on this wound. It was also then that he realized he had fallen into a trap. The battle between Shinryu and the Golden Rock, the story of one scale three feathers, was well known in the world. Therefore, when the giant Pengu's axe hurt the giant tree, but hit a golden feather that fell from the sky, he suddenly became alert. He wanted to get that thing to see what it was, but the Golden Rock got it first. Then he realized it was something important that he didn't know. The Golden Rock was very nervous about it. Then he attacked the Golden Rock, but after the first 13 spear strikes, he couldn't hurt the Supreme Rock King anymore. It was like the game he played in his previous life. Once a monster's HP dropped to a certain level, it would be locked down, and it would be difficult to hurt it. At this time he shouldn't attack, but should think if there was something wrong with his fighting style, and the solution to the problem was elsewhere. Therefore he connected the two things and made a bold inference. The giant parasol tree that was hurt by the Pengu giant was the main body. Because the aura and spiritual power of the two were extremely similar. He used the power of the netherworld on the wolf spine raging lion spear, and it was very effective against the golden light of the Golden Rock. The golden light was formed by spiritual power, and it was very weak in front of his more domineering power of the netherworld. But with every spear strike, the power of the netherworld was swallowed. It didn't dissipate into the world but disappeared just like that. This situation also happened to the giant parasol tree. The Golden Rock's demonic power was strange. It looked like spiritual power, but it was actually something else. But he felt that this was normal. Because the Supreme Rock King's realm was also very strange. It was a bird born in this world, but it was so powerful. According to Shinmu and the others, the Supreme was actually a passage. The auras of the two worlds were interconnected, and the passageway was filled. Thus, one could break through the shackles of common sense and become a top-notch expert. But why was the Golden Rock doing this? Thus he went straight for the giant parasol tree. Unexpectedly, the fear, caution, and even panic that Golden Rock had shown before were all acting. He was about to ask Li Yunxin to attack the giant tree. Li Yunxin sighed and looked up at the Golden Rock, who was slowly approaching him. I can't escape for the time being. I've been hitting geese all my life, only to be pecked in the eye by geese. The Golden Rock did not speak. It seemed to be thinking about something. Li Yunxin said, How are things now? Want to kill me? I'm afraid it won't be easy. There are people from the nether realm behind you. Of course I won't kill you so easily. The Pring King made a few hand seals, and the spiritual chi that gathered around him became more intense. The golden light on his body surged and condensed into something that seemed to be real again, coating him with a layer of armor. Moreover, it's not like you don't have the strength to fight. He looked at Li Yunxin in the golden light. It will devour your strength, but it will take some time to exhaust you. During this time, I want to ask you, did you come to deal with me because of Li Chunfeng's instigation, or because of the nether realm? Li Yunxin laughed. Li Chunfeng? Aren't you two on the same side? Now that things have come to this, who are you putting on a show for? The Golden Rock sneered non-committally. I don't want to get involved in the matters between you two. My killing intent is not as strong as yours. Everything I've done is because of injustice. Many years ago, people from the nether realm told me some things in the world, which made me feel that this world was just a small world, as if I was imprisoned in a prison. Then I thought that I would be the one to break out of this prison. He stopped smiling and stared at Li Yunxin. In the end, it's going to be you. Li Chunfeng did something bad which made me very unhappy. Although you're not like him, you're still in my way. Now that things have come to this, you can only blame yourself for being reckless. However, Li Yunxin appeared very calm at this time. This was in sharp contrast to his previous appearance. Just a few breaths ago, his spear momentum was like a dragon, unreservedly using all his strength, as if he was eager to kill the Golden Rock. But now that he was trapped, it was as if his whole body was immersed in ice water, and he quickly calmed down. He smiled slightly and stroked the long spear in his hand. I thought you hated me because of love. I said, how could a person who could do such a perverted thing as giving birth to a daughter with his half-daughter be a prisoner of love? Now that I look at it, it's because you slept in an airtight iron house. Later, someone woke you up but didn't tell you how to run out. That's why you hate me so much. The Golden Rock was slightly startled by his attitude and words. No one knew what he thought of, but the hostility in his tone also lessened. What you said is very appropriate. It's not me. It's Mr. Lu Sun. Who is it? Li Yunxin thought for a moment. A writer, thinker, and revolutionary. He wrote this analogy when he was writing the preface to a book he wrote called The Scream. The Golden Rock thought for a while before saying, so he's a scholar of the secular world. Such a person isn't worth your time. Li Yunxin smiled. I want to tell you that I don't like to be greedy for credit, I don't like to take on other people's projects. So I can understand your resentment at this time. As for me looking for you to kill you, it's because you're also in my way. I'm going to save this world soon and turn it into a new world. A powerful variable like you can't exist in a new world, so our only choice is to kill you or... The Golden Rock said in a deep voice, What? You want me to stand on your side? Li Yunxin shook his head. There's no such option. You're so strong that I can't rest assured. I mean, you can cripple your martial arts, hand over your body and only keep your soul. In fact, even so, you still have a chance to become a Grand Supreme again. But it's already a big concession. A smile appeared on the Golden Rock's face. This was a genuine smile of extreme anger. Li Yunxin sighed and said, Look, I knew you wouldn't accept this method. So I didn't offend you by saying this before, it shows my sincerity. After saying this, he paused for a moment. I don't feel well. I'm getting weaker and weaker. Because this tree is not a tree. The Golden Rock looked at him. It's a bottomless abyss that leads to another world. All your power is slowly being led to another world. In that case, you don't intend to give me a way out, nor do you intend to give me a way out. Then let's be destroyed together. You want to save the world? But now I want to destroy it. Li Yunxin opened his mouth. I see. Damn it. He raised his head and stared straight at the Golden Rock. I see. The people over there said they want your Grand Supreme body. But there are so many bodies of saints on Cloud Mountain, why must they want yours? So it's because of this that they want to kill you. You also came from somewhere else? As he said this, his eyes suddenly widened. You look. The golden light slowly faded from the Grand Supreme Rock King's body, revealing a cold face. It was Li Chuanfeng's face. Chapter 850. You. Li Yunxin paused. He took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. Finally he said, You look very much like Li Chuanfeng. There was a slight mocking smile on his indifferent face. But the smile soon disappeared and turned into a slight anger. It's not that I look like him, the Golden Rock said seriously. It's that he looks like me. Li Yunxin took 2 deep breaths to make himself less breathless. In fact, these instinctive movements were retained from when he was still a human. It was like a ritual which made him feel at ease. Tell me, he said. I really want to know. The Golden Rock smiled. You want to know? What do you want in exchange for this secret? Use his God-Soul diagram. I have his God-Soul diagram. The Golden Rock smiled again. That thing? I'm not interested. After all, I was the one who created it. You? Made it? Made it? He looked at Li Yunxin and raised his hand to point at him. Before you ask, look at yourself first. Now that a quarter of an hour has passed, you have lost most of your strength. A Grand Elder like you was refined into a Grand Elder. Strength is the essence of your existence. Now your strength is fading and so are you. As he said this, Li Yunxin's body began to slowly turn pale, so white that it was slightly transparent. The wolf spine angry lion spear in his hand also began to tremble slightly, as if it realized that its master was about to die and it did not intend to obey him anymore. Li Yunxin raised his hand, looked at it and shook his head. It doesn't matter. I just want to know the truth now. The Golden Rock sneered. The truth? Is it more important than your life? If that's the case, you're really boring. I was wondering what you would do when you saw my true face, but if you tell me that you don't want to fight anymore, I won't keep you. Li Yunxin frowned. Isn't that exactly what you want? You hate me for standing in your way. So now I'll use my life in exchange for that secret. Damn it. He suddenly cursed. None of them are good. Those people never knew what it meant to be honest. There were times when I could have walked away, out of it. But in the end, every time I wanted to leave, I realized that I was being used, so I wanted to figure it out every time. This time, I thought the truth had been revealed, but in the end, I became their tool to kill you. Rock King, honestly speaking, do you still want to continue fighting for them when you are in my situation? I'm tired now. Li Yunxin gritted his teeth and said, I want to give up and die. I wanted to show those people that not everyone was willing to be the gun in their hands to survive. You're right. The best way to get back at those people over there is to destroy the world and everyone will perish together. At that time, they will reflect on whether they are pure-blooded bastards or not. The golden rock raised its eyebrows as if it was surprised by his words. He thought for a moment and said, "Fine." But he had to wait another quarter of an hour. In another quarter of an hour you won't be a threat anymore. I'm not afraid that things might change if I tell you that secret. Li Yunxin spread his hands and said, "Whatever." Then the two of them fell into silence just like before they started the fight. The giant tree was floating in the air. The sunlight was dim in the sky, while the ground was covered with glistening gravel. This scene didn't seem to be in the Midland or the Heaven Sphere. Instead, it seemed to be in a strange alien world. After a while, Li Yunxin said, "It's so boring to fight with you." But the golden rock only stared at him. He was fully focused and didn't get distracted at all. He should be prepared for any strange moves that Jihao might make. Li Yunxin sighed and said, "It's true. I originally thought that my final battle would be grand and magnificent, but in the end I was tricked by you to this extent. Apparently, in this world, anyone who wants to be fair and square will die very quickly." While talking, he took out a folding fan from his sleeve. The golden rock's body immediately glowed with a dim light. "What are you doing? If you wait any longer, I won't be able to build a magic formation in the air." Li Yunxin raised his hand and drew two human figures in the air. He moved very slowly so that the golden rock could see him clearly. Then he told the golden rock what he was going to do next. "Now I'm going to build two bodies for Lu Gongzan and the ninth young master. I can only build two bodies that can contain their souls with the art of painting. No cultivation level, no magic. Just a container. When these two people land on the ground, they are just two ordinary people. They can't pose any threat to you." The golden rock frowned and raised his hand. When he was about to use his magic to erase the magic formation, he heard Li Yunxin say seriously, "I advise you not to do that. You trapped me in here and you want to drain my power slowly because you don't want to fight me head-on. This way you can preserve your power and deal with Li Chunfeng. Don't you believe that he's not dead? But these two people are my friends." Li Yunxin used the extremely weak demon power in his palm to protect the painting formation in the air. "I just don't want them to die with me. After I die they can still live for many years. If you don't let me do this, I'll fight you to the death. I guarantee that I have a way to seriously injure you, so that Li Chunfeng can kill you effortlessly." The golden rock stared at him seriously for a while, then put down his hand. So, Li Yunxin used a dozen breaths' time to finish the two painting formations. Then he reached out his hand to grab two green shadows from the folding fan and threw them into the formation. A mysterious light shone, and the bodies drawn with demon power became real. The two appeared in the air and fell down. Li Yunxin used his magic to catch them in time. Lu Gongzan already knew what happened when he was in the fan, but Li Yunxin didn't talk to him. Only then could he speak. "Exen," Li Yunxin pointed his finger and interrupted him, "Old Lu. You know I don't like to fight to the death. Take little nine and leave. If you can go back to the city of Wei, tell the people they're not to care about anything. The world is hopeless." Again. He thought for a while and sighed, "If you want to sacrifice me after I die? I used to like to drink the bejeweled nectar wine from the Cheonghua building in the city of Wei. But the Cheonghua building has been destroyed. I've tasted something similar in the Donghai kingdom. You can go there to avoid the disaster." After saying this, he looked at the golden rock. "Look, they are both mortals." The golden rock king scanned the two with his divine sense and said nothing. "The other one is unconscious." Li Yunxin said, "Let them go. Help me send them 100 miles away." The golden rock thought for a while and did as he said. With a wave of his hand, the two turned into flowing light and shot to the sky. He then retracted his gaze and looked at Li Yunxin. "It's meaningless for you to do this. There are demon soldiers in a radius of hundreds of miles. These two mortals, one of whom is unconscious, won't survive in the wilderness. I'm just doing my best." Li Yunxin smiled slightly. "Golden Rock King, you can tell me now. I feel like I'm about to fall apart. If you're more careful, you'll lose your heroic spirit." What he said was indeed the truth. The current Li Yunxin had already become translucent, and even her internal organs could be seen. It could be said that she was completely unobstructed. As for the power of the netherworld in his body, it was also extremely weak. Only black light was slowly flowing in his translucent body. That was his meridians. The golden rock showed a very faint smile on his face. "Okay. But in fact, I don't believe that you will die here. People of the painting Taoism have many ways to hide the spirit. But after this, you've lost all your demon power and it will take a long time for you to recover. What I need to do is only for these few days. As for that Li Chunfeng, Do you know where he came from? I do. You're not from this world. You're from another world that's hard to imagine. Haha. The golden rock laughed dryly. His smile faded and he was silent for a while. It seemed that mentioning the past made him very emotional, and he was the first to fall into his memories. After a while, he said, "What's harder to imagine is how hard it is to imagine. In our previous world, it's hard to find anything in this world that can compare our appearance or the way we exist. Even if we don't talk about appearance, the way we think is completely different. In other words, there's nothing in this world that can be used as a reference or an analogy for our so-called thinking." Li Chunfeng should have told you how I came to this world. But how much did he say? Li Yunxin held the trembling wolf spine raging lion spear tightly, and absorbed some of the power of the netherworld from the spear so that he could speak. Not much. He only mentioned it once. That's because he didn't want to mention that stupid thing. The golden rock laughed coldly. When I first came to this world, I didn't know anything. Because the way I think has changed. In my previous world, man is power and power is man. But in this world I need to find a body, what you call a spirit. You should know that from an outsider's point of view, what's the most powerful thing in this world? Is definitely not human. It should be demons. In my previous world, powerful strength means powerful spirituality and powerful rationality. So when I was choosing a body in this world, I chose a demon. It's that rock demon. Li Yunxin held his spear. 5,000 years ago, when the Daotong Kenzo conducted demon experiments in the Tongtian swamp area, the rock demon in the enclosure. He gathered his strength for a while and then said, "But it's not wrong. Demons are also very powerful. Later on, you also became the Grand Supreme. If I only seek to live in this world, naturally it's not wrong." The golden rock stared at Li Yunxin, and the look in his eyes became strange. "But I want to do something else." Li Yunxin was all too familiar with this kind of look. He often felt it himself. It was the kind of look that had something on his mind and wanted to tell everyone in the world, but he couldn't say it first because of the situation. Chapter 851. But he didn't ask further. It was because he knew he couldn't get any answers. More importantly, he knew that the Rock King couldn't keep it a secret for long. Everything would be settled soon. He might be able to wait for it. So he listened patiently. When this kind of expression appeared on a person's face, that person would always be more willing to talk than before, even if only a little. I became a demon. But I found that once I entered the demon body, it was difficult to get out. But it's also normal. I entered the demon body and not the body of a dead thing. It's already a good choice. After all, when I first came to this world, I knew nothing about it. You keep talking about you. Li Yunxin asked with difficulty. Li Chunfeng humph. The Rock King snorted coldly. This will be told later. What I have to do, I have to be a man. So I cultivated and easily became a Grand Supreme. When I reached that level, there were many ways to think. You've seen the Sage of Calligrapher and Sage of Sword of this generation of Shenmen, and you've also seen the Sage of Sword of the previous generation. Aren't you curious about where they got the method to cultivate the samsara body? That's not the method of Shenmen. Now I can tell you that it's my method. It's also a method from my previous world. When I became a Grand Supreme and fought with Shenmen, they couldn't do anything to me. If the people of Shenmen mentioned this matter, they would say that they were kind and didn't want the world to suffer because of the fight between the Grand Supreme. But actually, it was because I taught them this method. They benefited from me and knew that I had skills other than their Shenmen Taoism, so they gave up. Since I became a Grand Supreme and established my foothold, I used the method of creating the samsara body to create Li Chunfeng. I asked him to continue doing that in a human body. That should have been more than 1,000 years ago. Li Yunxin smiled weakly. I see. Li Chunfeng, this guy actually said that he was you. Then it's easy to explain. He rested for a while before saying, it turns out that he wanted me to die, and you to die. That's why he conspired with you and me. Now that the two of us are fighting, he'll just sit there and reap the benefits. The golden rock looked at Li Yunxin and sighed pitifully. He can't accept it. I know what he's thinking, and that's why I want to use the least effort to defeat you. If it wasn't for the fact that I didn't want him to succeed, I wouldn't have exposed this thing. It was my only link to the world that had come before. You can say it's very strong. You can't get away now. But it's still very weak. Once you know the trick, you'll be able to break it very quickly. Unfortunately, you won't be able to find out. After saying this, he raised his hand. I've told you everything you wanted to hear. It's also because I respect you for being an expert who can face adversity head-on like me. Now that I've done my part, let me send you off. However, Li Yunxin sighed in a low voice. Rock King, this is a difficult matter. I can't die yet. His words stunned the golden rock for a moment. However, he immediately realized what Li Yunxin was going to do. Without hesitation, he immediately threw out a palm strike. But Li Yunxin finally let go of the wolf spine raging lion spear, which had been shaking more and more violently. The pale white spear had now turned into a pale green color. In an instant, countless thin snake-like things were moving on the spear, as if a withered bone was quickly regrowing flesh and blood. When the golden rock's palm struck down, it was directly penetrated by the spear. The body of a great demon was extremely strong, but in front of this spear, it was like a mortal's flesh and blood. He was shocked and in pain and immediately flew back for hundreds of feet. At this moment he felt the earth shaking. It seemed that something had drilled out of the ground. In the next moment, a towering mountain appeared in the east. It was a giant, a pale blue giant. Even though there was still some distance between the giant and the spear, one could still see the snake-like flesh and blood on the giant's body, which were exactly the same as the spear. Under the flesh and blood, one could see countless wriggling eyeballs, which would numb one's scalp and make one shiver. The golden rock knew that thing. It was the skeleton that had been suppressed in the underground cave in the Midland. Although he did not participate in the previous battle in the Cloud Mountain, he had his own ways to know what had happened there. Therefore, he realized that the one that appeared in the east was very similar to the skeleton that had appeared in that battle. But obviously this one was stronger than the one at that time. It was no longer a skeleton. It had thick muscles and looked like a skinned person. Its terrifyingly large eye sockets even had a faint green light like a pair of eyeballs. It moved quickly and flexibly and was running towards them with big steps. You want to save your life with this thing? The golden light quickly gathered into the wound on the golden rock's palm, making it recover. But the great demon king was still in pain and anger. Li Yunxin, just now, for a moment, I really believed what you said and had some respect for you. Now it seems, Humph, is this the fair and square battle you want? Now, Li Yunxin seemed to have recovered some of his strength. His body was no longer transparent, as if it was going to disappear, and it was no longer difficult for him to speak. This was because the wolf spine raging lion spear, which had enlarged, was gathering into his body. Although compared with the great amount of power he had before, it was only a trickle, but it seemed to be enough to protect his body and soul. So he smiled and said, if you think about it, you will know that I always like to make trouble. How can I break my own arm? Just now, I stalled you for so long because I was waiting for it. The golden rock shouted angrily, I'm afraid it's useless. Can this kind of inanimate object save you? It's not a dead thing now. Li Yunxin put his palms together, and the monster in the east suddenly rushed over as fast as a shooting star. You said that the people over there told you a lot of things. But now I think they haven't told you enough. Otherwise, you should know that the skeletons suppressed in the underground cave and the sea cave in the Midland and the ocean are the ancient gods of this world. And the spear in my hand is the phalanx of that ancient god. He sneered and said, when I got this spear on the ocean, I felt its unyielding will and amazing obsession. In this spear, there is still some consciousness of the ancient god of the past. Now, Rock King, have a good fight with it. As soon as he finished speaking, the monster had already pounced in front of the golden rock. Without thinking, the Grand Supreme Demon King raised his palm and hit the monster's shoulder. This monster was huge, and the golden rock was like a mosquito in the air in front of it. However, the terrifying power of this palm immediately destroyed a small part of the monster's body, revealing the iron armor-like internal skeleton in its chest. In Cloud Mountain, the evil lord at the peak of the profound realm could seriously injure this monster at the cost of his own serious injury. Now the golden rock was naturally not a problem. After his attack succeeded, he immediately sneered and said, this is your so-called ancient god? In the time it took to say this, the seriously injured monster had already rushed in front of Li Yunxin and reached out to grab the spear. Then it fiercely stabbed the spear into its chest all the way to the root. After that, it seemed that the heavenly sphere had a heart. The whole ground made a dong sound. The monster's wound quickly healed, and its skin, which was shining with metallic light, instantly covered its whole body. It finally had a human form, and it no longer looked like an evil spirit. It had become a real giant. However, although this giant did not look scary, its aura was shocking. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth that had originally surged into the golden rock's body seemed to have encountered a bottomless pit. In an instant, all the spiritual chi changed directions and gathered crazily on the giant's body. The dim light in its eye sockets condensed into eyeballs. This pair of eyes glanced around and stared fixedly at the golden rock. The latter's expression became serious. He rose slightly and looked at the giant solemnly. Seeing Li Yunxin behind it, he smiled proudly and said, "Rock King? Why are you so impatient? This thing is a part of the ancient god in the past, not my child. Originally, it only came for the spear in my hand and would not help me or you, but you gave it a palm. This story tells us that we need to be calm in the face of trouble," he said with a cold expression. "Now we are even." As soon as he said that, the giant suddenly reached out with his hand. The golden rock did not know the real strength of this thing and immediately retreated. But the giant's palm reached out from behind him and firmly closed together. With a loud bang, two golden lights flashed in the sky. It was a gigantic illusion of golden feathers that spanned the entire sky. At this time Li Yunxin laughed coldly. "Wonderful. Looks like I'm more suited to backstabbing people and watching you fight. You lost 3 strands of hair when you fought against the Shinryu, and now you've also lost 3 strands. Tell me, am I stronger or is the former Shinryu stronger?" There was an explosion of thunder in the sky, and the golden rock's figure passed through one of the giant's palms and flew out. But Li Yunxin was now a chatterbox. "Rock King, if you don't fight properly today, you might become a featherless chicken. If that happens and you fall into Li Chuanfeng's hands, it will be very embarrassing." The golden rock was furious. "Shut up." With some unknown method, the giant tree moved again and like a giant worm, it tried to surround Li Yunxin again. But as soon as the giant waved his hand, the giant tree was hit, trembled a few times and then stopped moving. Li Yunxin sneered, "So you still have strength left. I'll call another person and let you have a good fight." When the giant followed the golden rock and launched the second palm strike, he raised his hand and took out the imperial heavenly painting. "This is the spiritual power painting of Midland." As he spoke, Li Yunxin quickly locked his fingers on the painting. "Now, I'll borrow the natural power and call the great sage to fight to his heart's content." The golden rock, who had encountered a powerful enemy, could no longer stop him. Li Yunxin completed the formation within the span of 3 breaths, and then reached out his hand and pointed at the eye of the formation. The weather changed and the sun and the moon dimmed. A terrifying power surged towards the painting in his hand, making the painting shake ceaselessly, as if it was going to break in the next moment. However, when it really came to the next moment, Li Yunxin seemed to be stunned. Nothing happened. The terrifying power surged into the painting but nothing happened. Chapter 852. Then he popped out his eyes and yelled, "How is this possible?" Looking at the map in his hand, it was like a beach covered by a flood. There were only some water stains, some residual power left. But most of it was sucked away by something, leaving nothing behind. That should be a powerful thing that could only be molded by the spiritual power between heaven and earth. After a breath, he roared towards the sky, "Li Chunfeng, I swear, I will destroy your body and soul." At the moment, the golden rock and the ancient god were fighting fiercely. The sky was filled with colorful lights and power. People who didn't know what was going on might think that it was the most beautiful fireworks in the world. But in fact, the power contained in a tiny spark of this fireworks was enough to destroy a large city. It was hard to tell which one was stronger. The golden rock suffered a loss first, then retreated. It seemed that it wanted to run away, but this ancient god had a strange power that could stop it every time. It seemed that in the eyes of that thing, time was the same as space, and as long as it flew high enough, it could see the whole world. Every change of the golden rock's power was within its expectation. Therefore, even though its incomplete body wasn't as strong as this rock, it wasn't at a disadvantage. But this way the battle was in a stalemate. The great rock king was able to hear Li Yunxin's angry roar. Therefore he knew that his other move had failed. He was angry at Li Yunxin for tricking him, so he sneered and said, "The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Now you've been tricked by Li Chunfeng, how do you feel? When I find the weak point of this stupid thing, I'll change my mind and not let you die a quick death." But Li Yunxin just stared at the distance with a gloomy face and didn't respond. In fact, he couldn't see anything at the moment, only a long and flat horizon. Far away from the battle, the ground was still as bright as a mirror. It was a scroll given to him by Li Chunfeng in the Great Tai Tower in Shuanghu City. He said that he had been walking in the Midland for the past year, and had drawn this map with the help of those painters. Therefore he had already imprinted all of the streams of natural powers in this area. He also said that he could activate the diagram when he was fighting the Golden Rock. It would gather the spiritual chi of heaven and earth to heal the great sage's injuries and kill the Golden Rock. But now, when Li Yunxin really used it, the spiritual energy was like water on the sand, completely seeping away. Li Chunfeng. He sighed. The mountains and forests that protected the royal family of the Wu Kingdom had been destroyed during the battle between the Golden Rock and Li Chunfeng. But in fact there was no need for the royal family to protect anymore. With the flattened Heaven Fiend Cliff as the center, the land within 900 miles became a smooth mirror. Beyond that was the plains that were slowly turning black. Only after traveling for more than 1,500 miles could one see trees, houses, and corpses that had yet to take shape, had already been carbonized and then burned. The vanguard army of the Rong state besieging the Wu state was almost completely annihilated. Even the demons with lower states died like mortals. When the Taishang fought, the people were plunged into misery and suffering and countless lives were lost. Lu Gongzan and the ninth young master supported each other as they walked on the mirror plane. Now that they had lost their supernatural powers, they were like mortals. Although their bodies were formed by the painting Dao supernatural powers of the Taishang state, and were considered unusual among mortals, they still felt a long-lost sense of fatigue and hunger after walking for 100 miles. This feeling was not unfamiliar to Lu Gongzan, but to the ninth young master, it was a very novel experience. After taking another 3 or 4 steps, the ninth young master staggered and fell to the ground. Looking back, there was an unobstructed view of the mirror and the straight horizon. Looking forward, left and right, it was still the same. This made people feel absurd, as if they were no longer in the mortal world, but in some terrifying space. Am I going to die? Lu Gongzan. The ninth young master pressed his stomach. I feel something is wrong. I might die, old Lu, I can't make it. Lu Gongzan also sat down beside him, tightened his clothes and turned back to look. Ninth young master, you're just hungry, thirsty and tired, but you won't die. In the sky behind them, there were gorgeous and magical colors, and they could vaguely see a huge human figure. However, their eyesight was not as good as before, and they could only see a blurry outline, and hear waves of muffled thunder. Hungry? The ninth young master opened his mouth. I'm not hungry. I didn't feel like this when I was hungry, old Lu, and I'm not thirsty. I didn't feel like this when I was thirsty. I used to want to eat. In the past you weren't hungry but greedy. Lu Gongzan patted his knee. Get used to it, ninth young master. You'll get used to it soon. The ninth young master was stunned for a while. Then he looked back. Li Yunxin? Did he win this time? Lu Gongzan was silent for a while with a solemn face and then said, I don't know. But I know when he sent us away just now, he was not at his wit's end. He said that after he died, I would offer him the bejeweled nectar of Cheonghua building. But he obviously liked to drink Mu Nanchun. I thought about it again and again, but I couldn't figure out what else he meant. I think he was telling me that the situation at that time was not what I saw, and that he had other ways. He just told us not to do stupid things. The ninth young master rubbed his belly again, and then, alas, Lu Gongzan sighed, we left there for almost an hour. They started fighting again. If something had happened to him, it wouldn't have dragged on for so long. He must have succeeded in his plan. The ninth young master rubbed his belly and thought for a while. Then he suddenly punched the ground. I really had 8 generations of bad karma to meet him. Now I have lost all my cultivation in this body. If he really died, would I end up like those little people? Why do I have to worry about food and drink all day? No. Lu Gongzan, you have to think of a way. What else did he say to you? We have to help him save his life. Otherwise, what should I do in the future? But Lu Gongzan shook his head. There's no way, ninth young master. There's no way. He raised his hand and pointed behind him. That's the fight between the grand elders. Even if we were in the past, you were in the true realm and I was in the profound realm, we couldn't help. Brother Xan mentioned the Donghai kingdom. Maybe he has made some preparations there. If we really want to help him, we have to leave this wasteland and go to the Donghai kingdom. The ninth young master frowned. I won't go. I won't leave at this time. I have to. At this time, he heard the voice of a third person. You really shouldn't leave, said the voice. Your body is still useful. They looked toward the source of the voice and saw the third person. It was a green phantom, translucent. His feet didn't touch the ground and he floated over slowly. This thing, looked like a wandering ghost. But his words were clear and logical. Obviously he had retained his sanity. They didn't know where he came from. The third person walked 2 steps away from them and stopped. He put his hands behind his back and looked up into the distance. Although he didn't have a body, he had a kind of indescribable majesty and pressure. Lu Gongzan and the 9th young master looked at each other. The latter was about to speak, but Lu Gongzan pressed his arm and stopped him. Because he realized that the appearance of this ghost was 80% similar to that of his brother Xen. You are. Lu Gongzan stood up and said in a low voice, Li Chunfeng? The ghost glanced at him. Oh, you are Lu Gongzan. Thank you for taking care of my son this year. The 9th young master stared at this person. He had only heard about this person, but this was the first time he saw him. Even though all he saw was a ghost. Lu Gongzan put on a fake smile. It's brother Xen who took care of me. Otherwise, I would still be a mediocre mortal in the city of Wei. Maybe I would have died half a year ago. The ghost laughed. I know what he wants. You are the only one who can give him what he wants. But there are many people who can give you what you want. So it's not wrong to say that you take care of him. Lu Gongzan's face turned cold. What he wants is nothing more than sincere feelings. When he knew you were not dead, I persuaded him that you were his father after all, and maybe you had your own difficulties. But I didn't expect that you didn't have the feelings that a human should have. Even a vicious tiger doesn't eat its cubs. What you did is no different from a beast. Li Chunfeng smiled and said casually, if you like it, you can be his father. You. Lu Gongzan was furious, but he didn't act rashly. You? Me? What? Am I heartless? Li Chunfeng looked at him gently. Don't I know how to hug each other like you? Ha. Yes. Love is a very good thing. Family, friendship, love, and the entanglement of responsibilities and obligations between people. These things will bring you together and you won't feel lonely anymore. Li Chunfeng looked at Lu Gongzan with interest. But it will also mean that there will be responsibilities between people. Don't you know how harmful responsibility is? He raised his hand and pointed at the blazing light in the distance. My son, if he didn't have feelings for you and some responsibilities, would he be in such a situation? If he didn't have feelings for me, would he be in such a situation? Lu Gongzan opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. The 9th young master also wanted to refute. But he couldn't understand these things either. Li Chunfeng's tone was calmer. Do you know how I live? I gave him a scroll saying that there was a map of the mountains and rivers in the Midland. I told him to gather the power of the Midland during the battle, to heal the injury of his great elder's assistant. But in fact, since I faked my death for a year, I have been traveling in the Midland. I spent a year to draw a soul for myself in the Midland. He used this method in the city of Wei. Why didn't he think about it? Because he was blinded by his feelings for me and he wasn't so smart. A few days ago he hesitated many times, maybe he thought that he had given me a lot of chances. He couldn't be decisive, and ended up in such a situation. When I saw him like that, I felt proud and sad at the same time. He was the most like me in the world. But in the end he still became an ordinary person. Li Chunfeng sighed again. Therefore he used that magic formation just now to rebuild my soul. Lu Gongzan, tell me, what did you do to him? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.